to a meeting of the Board of Education of Somerset Hills. Please be advised that this and all meetings of the board are open to the public and media, consistent with the Open Public Meetings Act, and that advance notice required therein has been provided. This is a meeting of the Board of Education of Somerset Hills at which formal action may be taken. The public will have an opportunity to be heard as shown on the agenda. Mrs. DeMarco, roll call, please.
Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Ms. Ballard?
Oh, here.
Here.
Ms. Cooper? Mrs. D. Grandpre?
Here.
Ms. Gills? Mr. Joyce?
Here.
Ms. Nathans? Mrs. Santoro?
Here.
Mrs. Rye?
Here.
And Mrs. Frenda?
Here. Okay. Executive session. The Open Public Meetings Act authorizes a public body to exclude the public from that portion of a meeting at which specified topics are to be discussed under circumstances where the public consideration of such topics will clearly endanger the public, or where the personal privacy or guaranteed rights of individuals whose activities or affairs are to be discussed would clearly be in danger of unwarranted invasions, and the matters about to be presented for discussion clearly meet the circumstances test. The Board of Education of Somerset Hills now adjourns its public session to reconvene an executive session for the purpose of discussing the following: personnel, student matters, contracts, negotiations, and litigation. Can I please get a motion to go into executive? Ms. Rye and Mr. Grandpre? Okay, thank you. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, for which it stands. Okay. So we opened our meeting at 5:30 publicly and adjourned to executive session. We would now like to welcome Gwen Thornton from New Jersey School Boards Association, who will lead the board in their annual ethics training. The training will be followed by our regular monthly public meeting and the report of the superintendent. So at this time, we are going to turn it over to Gwen Thornton.
Yes. Well, good evening. Happy New Year to all of you. It's nice to be back, and I hope everyone is well. So again, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm here to do your annual ethics training. For most of you, you're very familiar with all of this, so on a lot of the things that are the same, which are a lot, I'm going to go pretty quickly because I know you have a public meeting at 7:30, and so I want you to be on time for your public. Okay. So, this is our standard disclaimer. You have a board attorney. This is meant as information. If you have additional questions that are district-specific, you certainly should check with your board attorney and obtain his advice on any local issue or problem. But this is informational for all of you, and this is the presentation that we are giving to districts all across the state. So, again, the school board member code of ethics is because you are an elected official and you are serving and have that honor and responsibility to serve the public, but it comes with, of course, some limitations around some of the pieces that you deal with, and you need to make sure that you are holding yourselves accountable and recognizing that the School Ethics Act is really the minimum set of standards that is expected of all Board of Education members. Okay? So it's essential to retain the respect of your administrators, your staff, your community, and to avoid conduct which is a potential violation of the public trust or creates an impression that there is a violation of the public trust, because sometimes perception is reality, and that's an important piece to remember. So the School Ethics Act established the SEC, which is not the Securities Exchange Commission, which is what I thought as a teacher of social studies until I came to New Jersey and figured out and became a board member and knew then it was the School Ethics Commission. It outlines certain acts that are prohibited. It talks about the mandatory training that you're required to take care of as Board of Education members. It established the Code of Ethics, which actually came out of the New Jersey School Boards Association Delegate Assembly, and at one point when dinosaurs roamed the land, was just a best practice, but became enshrined in statute and code. It also speaks to your disclosure statements. If you're a brand-new board member, you have to complete that within 30 days of your appointment. For the rest of you, you have until April the 30th, but please don't forget to do it in a timely way, because there have been some changes to the way the School Ethics Commission is now taking care of people who are in violation, and you don't want to find yourself in that situation because of oversight. And what I recommend to all of my board members, don't tell the Ethics Commission, is when you fill it out, make a copy of it and put it away and keep it to next year, so that you don't have to look up all of those addresses where you may derive income. It just makes it so much easier to do it year after year, because most folks, it's pretty consistent in terms of listing where you're generating your revenue, your income from, okay? And it just makes it simple. Who's accountable to the School Code of Ethics? Board members, including charter school trustees, professional members of the staff at NJSBA. I, for example, have been filling out those financial disclosure statements for more than 20 years as a board member and as a staff member, and that's why I know to keep a copy every year, so I can just transfer the information to make it simple. And then administrators, anyone who holds a certificate, your superintendent, assistant superintendent, the business administrator, and that they all fill out those, have that responsibility as well, okay? So keep that in mind. Who enforces the act? The SEC is 9 members, 5 members who are non-school officials, 2 school board members, 2 superintendents. Those 9 members are appointed by the governor, serve for a 3-year term. And again, you can't have any more than 5 members on that commission who are of the same political party, because we are, as school board members, nonpartisan, and politics should have no place in school boards, and this is recognition of that fact. Okay. Their jurisdiction, they can issue an advisory opinion, they hear ethics complaints, and they act on ethics complaints. Keep in mind that if you want an advisory opinion, it is on a prospective basis, meaning before you take action, participate in something, or otherwise vote or make a determination around whether it's appropriate for you to participate. You can't ask for an advisory after you've voted or after you have participated. It's too late. So it's on a prospective basis. The SEC, based on their information that they give us, on an average, adjudicate around 85 ethics complaints annually and issue somewhere around 35 or 40 advisory opinions. Some advisory opinions, if they have widespread impact on board members across the state, they will make them as public advisory opinions so that you will be informed. We publish all of those in school board notes, and there is the expectation that if they have weighed in through an advisory opinion that's been made public, that that decision is binding on board members in the same way as all of their other decisions as well. Okay? Talks about mandatory training. Here's a change that went into effect just this year. New board members in their first year of their first term now only have 90 days within which to take training. You must complete your new board member orientation within 90 days. Again, you know, we have multiple options for completing that. We have in-person weekends, we have live virtual meetings, we have virtual meetings, and there is an online self-paced course for each of the years that you're required to take mandatory training. So you don't want to find yourself on that dreaded list in December that we have to send off by law to the School Ethics Commission and then get a nasty note that says you're out of compliance. You have to take Gov 2 in your second year, Gov 3 in your third year, and anytime you are reelected for a new term, you have to take Gov 4. You may take these all in the first year of service if you wish. However, just understand that it will not count to your compliance in the year in which it's required, and these courses tend to get rewritten, at least in some part, every single year, so it'll be slightly different. I often have new board members who say, I want to know it all, so I'm going to take them all online, which you can do, or virtually, and that's wonderful. Just know that it doesn't count toward that year where you are mandated to take the training, and that's from the School Ethics Commission. Okay? Your disclosure statements, we've talked about already, 30 days from the start of employment or service, and the April 30th for everyone else. What can the School Ethics Commission do? They have various kinds of penalties that they levy. One is a reprimand, which is exactly what it sounds like. Don't do it again, whatever it is. A censure, which is a more formal disapproval by the commissioner. It is publicized by the adoption of a resolution. You're required to post it in the district for 30 days. You're also required to send to the commissioner and the SEC a copy of the minutes in which the motion or the censure letter is read out loud so that it happens. So your public would then be fully aware of it. A suspension is exactly what it says it is. It's a specific period of time from which someone is removed, and then if the violation is particularly egregious, you can be removed completely from your Board of Education. That's been done, but it's fairly rare. The ones that are most typically levied are the reprimand and the censure. If you look at the cases, you can go online and you can see every case by year that's been adjudicated, which is really sort of nice, so that if you have questions and you want to look at them or you like reading those things, it's available to you to be able to see. Okay? Here's the actual code. God bless you. You're required to uphold and enforce all laws, rules, and regulations of the State Board of Ed and court orders pertaining to the schools. This has become somewhat of a hot-button issue, and what I would tell you is you're required to uphold, enforce all of the laws, rules, and regulations, the ones you like, as well as the ones you may not agree with. You're required to make decisions in terms of the educational welfare of all students, to maintain public schools that meet the individual needs of all children, regardless of their ability, race, creed, sex, or social standing. Again, you are here to provide a quality education for all students that provides equitable opportunities for participation with access to the full curriculum in your school district. You're required to confine your board action to policymaking, planning, and appraisal, and will help to frame policies and plans only after you have consulted by those who are going to be affected or impacted. Again, oftentimes that is done through your administration, who will provide input and feedback to the board members before you design policies and plans. You're required to carry a responsibility not to administer the schools, but to see with your colleagues that they are well-run. That simply means you do not get involved in the day-to-day operations of the school district. You see that the schools are running well through your oversight functions, but you do not get involved in running the school district. You recognize that authority rests with the Board of Education and make no personal promises nor take any private action that may compromise the board. No individual Board of Education member has any authority to require staff or students to do anything in your school district except when you are here at a duly advertised meeting of the board, in which case when the majority of the board makes a decision, it can compel your administration to act. But other than that, once this meeting is adjourned until the next time you convene as a full Board of Education, you have no more authority in your community than I do. And I even live in town, but that doesn't matter. It doesn't mean I have authority here in the Somerset Hills School District. So keep that in mind. And again, this is one that really the SEC is spending a lot of time on because of social media, where people are taking, or at least making the suggestion that someone has taken private action that may compromise the board. Okay. Refusing to surrender your judgment to special interest or partisan political groups, or to use the school for personal gain or the gain of friends. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. However, you are required to keep an open mind and to make your decisions, again, harking back to what earlier, one of these, to what's in the best interest of all students. Okay. Holding confidential all matters pertaining to the schools. You just came out of exec session. Whatever was discussed in exec session needs to remain in exec session until such time as the need for confidentiality no longer exists. There are some items that will never become public, student matters, personnel matters, but for example, in a negotiated agreement, when you're doing bargaining, once you've signed the contracts, then those minutes will be made public through a process that's embodied in your policy manual. But again, when we say confidential, that means you don't share it with your spouse, your significant other, anyone beside another board member. Okay. You're required to vote to appoint the best qualified personnel available after taking into consideration the recommendation of your chief school administrative officer. That does not require you to vote yes on every personnel appointment, as long as your rationale for voting is not deemed to be arbitrary or capricious. You certainly can vote no if you so choose to do so, but you must take into consideration. And additionally, the board cannot appoint anyone to a position in the district without the affirmative recommendation of the superintendent. Okay. You're required to support and protect school personnel in proper performance of their duties. This simply means that, if you stood on the sidelines of the last lacrosse game when your child was playing before you became a board member and wanted to complain about the coach, you could in public. Once you become a board member, you can't, because you have to support the school personnel in the proper performance of their duties. And that is the best example that I can give, and it's the one that probably troubles board members the most. When you were a board member, if you have a concern with personnel for some particular reason, we'll talk about what to do with that, but notify your superintendent. You are not authorized to direct staff. You are required to refer all complaints to the chief school administrative officer, your SUP, and act on complaints at public meetings only after the failure of administrative solution. That doesn't mean that every parent always is going to be happy with an administrative solution. Don't mistake that for the administration not responding. Do not engage yourself in investigations of issues in the district. Again, if you have a concern, if you have a question, reach out to a committee chair, because you operate by committees. Reach out to the superintendent and make the superintendent aware. He is the one responsible. For all intents and purposes, the board has one employee, the superintendent. You hold the superintendent accountable for his performance. He holds all other staff accountable for their performance. Okay? One of the ways that you can sort of work to resolve those issues with the community when they may call you, when they stop you in the frozen food section of the ShopRite, is to understand that you want to give board members, can give the public an understanding of gaining access to the system. Sometimes they think that you have more authority than you actually do, so asking them and being able to tell them, you have a busing problem, get in touch with the transportation department. You have a concern about a coach, speak to the athletic director. First speak to the coach, then speak to the athletic director, and then you would speak to the high school principal and work your way up. You are the court of last resort. You're not the beginning, you're the end, okay? So making sure that when you're communicating with parents, you can give them that information as to how they can get their situation, their concern, their problem resolved in the way that starts with the person closest to where the problem emanated, typically if it's a school issue, with the classroom teacher, and then the principal, and so forth and so on. So understanding that if you involve yourself at a level where a problem begins, if it gets to the board, you most likely would have to recuse yourself and not participate. So the best thing you can do is to provide them information, to give them access that will be expedient and helpful for them. Understanding as a board member what's your chain of command. Again, if you're advised of any issue or complaint in the district that you do not solicit, by the way, you refer the individual to the lowest level in the chain of command for resolution. And again, notify the superintendent if you're hearing things out there that you believe are going to get to the board table or going to become public that may be controversial or of concern. It goes to that rule about effective board governance, no surprises. The board doesn't surprise the superintendent, and the superintendent doesn't surprise the board. Okay? And that's really important. Some of the cases that we looked at this year that are perhaps a little bit of a change, and I'm not going to go through each of these. I will send you this PowerPoint to Ginny tomorrow, who can send it out to the board so you'll have a copy. And then all the citations are there if you want to look them up. Not surprisingly, a lot of these emanate from use of email and social media. Okay? And that has become a large concern of the School Ethics Commission, which is why we are spending a great deal of time talking to boards of education about what is appropriate use, what's inappropriate use. I always suggest that you err on the side of caution. I've told this story a million times, and I'm going to tell it again. When I was a Board of Education member and was upset about something, I would go home from the board meeting, I would write an email, I would save it as a draft, and the next morning I would get up and I'd hit delete. I was able to vent quietly to my computer, and then I eliminated it. You're far better off calling the superintendent, making him aware, but certainly not venting on social media with the public, because as you can see, the majority of these cases all have to do with that, with board members taking perhaps personal action that could potentially compromise the board. Okay. Again, these are more of those cases. And again, a board member texting a staff member to ask them why they have to change the date for a graduation. Again, taking personal action, directing staff, as opposed to being respectful of the chain of command. Okay. Again, those are the kinds of things that don't need to be a problem and shouldn't be a problem. One of the cases that's particularly outrageous, a board president lost election, the next day directed the board council to conduct research on another board member who had campaigned against him. That's using the board, it's using your position for personal gain, right, to go after a colleague. You cannot do those things, okay? Prohibited acts. In addition to the Code of Ethics, there's also information around board members recusing yourself if you have a conflict. So again, if you have a business or a professional activity that might be in conflict with the school district, for example, if you are the principal in a business that is a vendor to the district, you would have to recuse yourself from participating in that. Using your position to secure unwarranted privileges, having your child placed in a particular class outside of the regular process by which students are placed, any kind of financial involvement that might impair your objectivity, any kind of service or employment, again, that may prejudice your independent judgment, taking a gift or a favor from a vendor, for example, or from someone outside of just in the community that is given with the intent to influence you personally, or any kind of financial gain that you might accrue, you should recuse yourself completely. And by recuse, it's important to note the difference between an abstention and a recusal. If there's a conflict, a legal conflict, like those I've just talked about, you must recuse yourself. And it should be so noted in the minutes as opposed to an abstention, which simply says, I'm not voting. The recusal says to the public, I had nothing to do with it. That means you should not be in executive session. If there's something that's a particular legal conflict for you, as a board member, you need to not participate in that executive session, not be present, and not participate. And then when whatever that matter comes before the board for a vote, you would recuse yourself. Yes. Yes.
And kids. So if you have knowledge of a hit and you recuse yourself from executive session for it, should you then your vote should be to recuse from that hit, not abstain?
Correct.
Got it. Okay.
Okay. All right. You shall not, other considerations, you should not represent the board or any other party, in a matter that comes before the board. For example, if you're an attorney and you're representing a client and you're a board member, you should recuse yourself and not participate, okay? How do you know if you have a conflict? If the benefit that accrues to you is greater than the benefit that would accrue to any other member of the public is sort of the standard that we use. Oftentimes, I saw on your agenda while I was waiting for all of you, you have several field trips, right? So if you have a child in one of those classes that's taking a field trip that's on your agenda, and you think, can I vote on that because my child's going, there's a benefit, the benefit is not greater than any other benefit that is being given to every child who's going on that field trip. So if it's the 8th grade field trip to Liberty Science Center, you can certainly vote on that. It's not a benefit to you as a parent when the entire class is going. If it were just your child and you wanted a car, that would be, you'd have to not do that. Okay? So again, it's just remembering when you want to recuse as opposed to abstain. Abstention should be used when you have insufficient information to be able to make an informed vote, and abstention can be used if you weren't present to hear the information or to approve the minutes if you so choose to do that. Abstention should not be used because it's a controversial issue and you don't want to be on one side or another. That's not the intent of what an abstention is for. So keep that in mind as well. You were elected by your public to represent the best interest of every child in your community, and sometimes that means making hard decisions. So that's the difference between a recusal when you're legally conflicted and an abstention when you may lack information or were absent from a meeting and don't want to vote on something because you don't feel you have sufficient understanding of the issue. Okay? Yes?
Just really quickly, so when we're going off to whatever, like the conference in October, in past, haven't we just said abstain from whatever? Should we recuse from the sending fee for ourselves or abstain?
Never been asked that question.
Yay me.
Yeah, you. Of course, you're a social studies teacher. I would probably recuse myself because you are gaining a benefit, but it's not a benefit that's any greater than any other member of the board. However, if you just want to be careful, your board attorney may have some thoughts on that. I think.
I would, for me, I would say abstain. I don't think any of my board members have ever gotten into trouble.
I've never heard of anybody getting into trouble on that, but again, always err on the side of caution. It's whatever. Either way, I think you're covered, and that's fine. It's, again, I just always err on the side of caution. Okay? Again, some of the conflicts that could emerge are based on relationship definitions. So an immediate family member is your spouse, your civil union partner, domestic partner, dependent child residing in the same household. That's an expanded definition than the original definition of relative. Okay? They've expanded it. A relative, again, I'm not going to read you all of those people, but it's almost anybody you're related to. And again, it's the expanded definition that is in your nepotism policy. It wasn't originally written into the statute, but when they updated the regulations this past January, they finally expanded and recognized that they've been using this definition for years, but finally put it into the actual regulations, this expanded definition. So again, it's a lot of relatives. However, here's the good news. This is really exciting, but maybe only exciting to those of us who work for NJSBA, and that is they finally issued a list of whether it's a conflict or not. I will send you this list. I know it's small print. I will send you this list tomorrow in a PDF so that you can look at it and print it, and it now tells you who's conflicted and who's not with every single one of the relationships that exist.
And this is, I believe it's AO623 is this one, but also A24-17 gives another chart. That was the first chart that we ever saw from them.
I know.
And now we're blessed with yet another chart, and that A24-17 talks about if you are a board member and have someone that work in the district, what you can do
That-
as it relates to the superintendent and contract negotiations. And there you have it.
Okay. This has been in our ethics chart for years, and they finally put it in, just so you know. We've had this, some of you probably remember looking at this slide for the last several years. And I skipped a couple of slides just to say, here it is. But this one, I actually had a BA who actually stood up and applauded me. It's like,
But when you know what's missing on here?
No.
I just did this today. There's nothing in here that says cousin. So cousin is not a relative. Cousin is an other.
okay.
Go figure.
And that is the other caveat. There is a whole category called other, and so it can include any number of folks. It's generally based not on a familial relationship, but on a close personal tie that you might have. So, for example, there was a superintendent who had you just need to be mindful that there are many people who could be others out there, and you won't know till you know, but just, again, you have to be careful. I think another example of that is a board member who was divorced. The divorced person was employed by the district, his wife, and he was providing spousal support, child support, and spousal support. And so they declared that an other because she was no longer a relative under any of these definitions, but it could impact, his objectivity and so forth in voting. So that's another example of an ex-spouse that you were providing perhaps child support and or spousal support to, depending. That could be an other as well. That's really interesting. We now currently have, fortunately for us, the former chief counsel to the SEC is now an NJSBA legal counsel. So I will bust her chops tomorrow about the cousin. I didn't know that, but I wasn't in the office today, so I may have missed it. It may have come out, but that's good to know. The cousin is missing. I have to say I didn't really read that whole list since I'm no longer a board member.
I only know it because I literally had to look that up today.
Wow. Okay. So hiring personnel, again, you may not hire the relative of a board member or a family member of the chief school administrator. You cannot, the superintendent can't recommend it, which means you can't hire it, but you should know you can't do that. We have an example of someone right now in a district who district hired the board president's father after the board member was already in office, and that's pending, but that's a very large district that sort of operates by its own rules, but nevertheless, that is an issue for that school district, so you can't do that. Okay. This is for collective bargaining, and again, as your attorney so brilliantly pointed out, this chart specifies who can and not participate, who can vote and not vote, and that's an important piece as well. Just live by it. I was always glad if I was conflicted out because you didn't then have to bargain.
Other fall on this list?
Possibly, but they haven't outlined that, and it has not become a problem as of yet. And notice I said as of yet. They may ultimately we may have to adjust this moving forward. Okay. Again, other possible conflicts. Again, you can't be supervising someone who's not in a unit. Again, this is different from when just several years ago. Endorsement of a candidate by a local or statewide union does not create per se an automatic future conflict unless a financial contribution is given and is intended to influence the member. I don't know who would ever acknowledge that they took a donation in order to to be influenced, so I don't know how you ever prove that.
Where I've seen this, Gwen, is when an association tries to conflict out someone from negotiating. I've seen an association make an endorsement.
I've seen that too.
Someone that they don't like.
Right.
And give a contribution.
Well, and we have begun to see cases where, and they're not yet public, that they are limiting members who were endorsed strongly by an association being not allowed to participate in the appointment of committees or to serve on various committees. And I think that that's something that's going to be coming shortly. They are expanding that. So why they made this change, and then now we have to sort of go back, but that's something, as the membership of the SEC changes, these things continue to evolve, which is one of the reasons that doing this training is an annual requirement under CUSAC, because it's an indicator in the governance district performance review, is because these things evolve and change, and they have evolved and changed. Again, I will send you this. You can read all of these cases related to these prohibited acts, and you can see what they have done in these circumstances, okay? Again, impact on committee assignment when a relative works in the district. A board president, his child's an instructional. He can't choose any committee members, nor be on any committees connected involving the local education association or matters related to the superintendent. Can't choose chair members. So if you're a board member that has a family member employed in the district before you became a board member and you want to be a board officer, it really does significantly constrain your ability to serve as a Board of Education president or vice president. And so this is a significant change, and I think we're going to see this expanded, and not removed, okay? Again, if you have a relative in the district, make sure you don't participate in any executive session where there's discussion around that, and again, or accidentally vote. In both cases, where these board members were, claimed that they didn't know or whatever, council was consulted first, and they've sort of said, it doesn't matter. The council was consulted and said, yeah, okay, and let them do it. So just be aware of that, okay?
One thing, Gwen, and I don't know if this has hit your radar yet, but a week or two ago, the appellate division came out with a decision with regard to using the advice of counsel defense.
Yes, it did hit our radar.
Okay, I don't know if you're going to address it.
No, go ahead.
I was involved in a case years ago where the board member who I represented in front of the Ethics Commission relied on advice of counsel. And that was a straight-up defense. Like, my lawyer said I could participate in this. And the commission said, too bad, you shouldn't have, that's not, advice of counsel is not a defense. It is now, the appellate division was not the case that I was in, the case that was in my office was brought to the appellate division. And the appellate division said that advice of counsel is actually a defense now to these cases.
If it has if it meets specific criteria.
It's not a blanket.
No, yeah.
But there's been a chipping away at the otherwise rather, I think, strong position that was previously taken.
Well, if my attorney told me it was okay, most people would say. I checked with the board attorney, or my attorney, depending, right, and said, this is perfectly okay, you can do this. I would take that to heart. I figure that's all right. So I always thought that was pretty draconian in its application. But again, you're right, but there are very certain, and we didn't put that in here yet because there are very specific criteria, and it's a little confusing until we get more clarity on it. We haven't included it here, but I am aware of it. Okay. Volunteering in school. Again, this board has heard me say 100 times, this did not exist when I was a Board of Education member, and I would have been in hot water for the kinds of volunteer things that I was doing. Not that I was doing anything wrong, but I ran the school store at the elementary level. I collected nickels and dimes and quarters. You should really never be handling district money in any circumstance. But again, it has to do with the degree of involvement and the degree of authority. So you should not be, enmeshed in the building so that when someone comes in, they go, oh yeah, she's a board member. She's here every day, every week. That's not appropriate. So, making sure one individual member is going in to either do a party as a classroom mom or take kids on a field trip. All of those one-time things are okay. Any public event is perfectly okay. Science fairs, choral concerts, football games, none of those things are prohibited. It is only if you were giving or taking direction from a staff member, or you were really involved with children heavily, or you were handling the district money. And you cannot be a regular volunteer or a coach for a school district or a club or activity or sport. Again, that's the SEC's ruling and regulation. It is not something that we agree or disagree with. It simply is, okay? Again, if you have a family member in the district and are conflicted, you can't participate in any way in the superintendent's evaluation, in terms and conditions of employment, or if you're doing a search for a new superintendent, you can't participate in that in any way, shape, or form. Again, that comes right from there. So again, social media, you do not automatically violate the code of ethics by posting on social media. Again, you need to be guided by their language as whether a reasonable member of the public could perceive that you are speaking in your official capacity as a Board of Education member, okay? And in large part, it depends on the content of what you were saying in those social media posts, okay? And that is an important piece to keep in mind. There is a disclaimer, and here it is. The following statements are made in my capacity as a private citizen and not as a board member. These statements are not representative of the board or its individual members. They solely represent my own personal opinions. However, the usage of the disclaimer does not give you an automatic pass on a potential ethics complaint. It is the content of your speech in addition to the disclaimer. So if you don't have that disclaimer, you're not automatically guilty of an ethics complaint. However, it does give you some protection by using that. So if you were to go to another Board of Education meeting and want to talk to another Board of Education in public comment, you should include a disclaimer on that as well. Because if people know that you're a member of the Somerset Hills Board of Education and you go down the road to Bedminster and you want to comment on something the Bedminster board's done, you better make darn sure that you, because they probably know who all of you are, right? So you want to make sure that you use that disclaimer in any kind of format in which you are expressing yourself, free speech, okay? And so that's an important as well. So again, it helps to clarify the capacity by having that disclaimer in there, what you're saying, but again, it is solely based on content, and again, content and perception matter a lot. And so you need to just be very mindful, okay, of that, okay? So, again, you should never use your district email address on social media. If you're going to post and be on social media, make sure you use your personal account, which I'm assuming you all have, and not your school district account. It is no longer appropriate to use one's campaign page to post. Again, this comes from a very specific decision on social media. It just causes confusion because it was used to campaign, so it's very clear that that could be problematic. Again, any social media account that inherently indicates your position as a board member should not be used. So if you use your personal account, but you sign it as Pat Rye, Board of Education member, Somerset Hills, that's just as problematic as if you used your district address. So you should not include that identity piece there. You can say it in the body, but you need to be very careful around that, okay? Again, use of divisive language. You should refrain from any kind of inappropriate communication that have no place in the educational setting. Again, you are there to serve the best interest of all students, and divisive language that is inappropriate has no place in the educational setting. So just points for you to consider. We recommend, if you have conflicted members, a lot of attorneys will ensure that they have a list and they understand if there are any potential conflicts, just to make sure, because it does change sometimes after an election. You may gain a conflicted member, you may lose a conflicted member, so just so it's clear to everyone. Always consult with your board attorney on ethics issues, and continue to check school board notes to keep up with the latest decisions. because we make sure that anything that comes, we post in school board notes so you're aware. And always, check, err on the side of caution, always. Questions? Yes?
So what do you recommend doing with social media accounts that were used for campaign? Like
I would suspending them, and I wouldn't use them again until I ran for the next election.
Okay, so like good to put a notice of like, I'm suspending the, or just take it offline, just take it down.
You can take it down.
Simple, take it down.
You can take it down.
I would suggest, when you take it down, write somewhere the day that you took it down, just so that you have it for future, to the extent it becomes an issue down the road.
Gotcha.
Always err on the side of caution. I guess you could leave it up there, but people may write to you and then you're not responding, and then it appears as though it could get confusing and problematic. I'm sure most districts, and I know you all do, have all of the board members and their email addresses on your website, so if someone wants to get a hold of you, they can do it that way. If they wish to speak to you about a district concern, and they shouldn't be using your personal email for that either. They shouldn't be bothering folks on their personal email unless you're using your personal email to post, in which case people are going to respond. Okay. All right. Yes.
Hi, could you speak, by the way, your presentation is very well done. I was hoping you could speak to the certification process.
Sure.
To become a
certified board. You need 16 credits. We just actually revised these this past, September or October. You need to do that. Again, you get hour for hour credit you get a credit for tonight, for example. I know you have credits. They run for a 4-year period. It's a rolling total. I didn't have a chance today to look at Somerset Hills. I'm sorry that I didn't have a chance. I wasn't in the office long enough today to do that. However, my advice is it's a wonderful way to keep up with what's going on. It doesn't mean you have to look at me for those hours. If you want to have our governmental relations department come in and talk about, how do we advocate for public education in the state of New Jersey, someone can come in from that. If you want to have one of our legal beagles come in and talk about that specific case where we're talking about, the council defense and what's new and going on in legal, they can do that. If you want to have someone from labor relations come in and talk about the latest trends in settlements across the state, someone can come do that as well. And then we can come in, but we generally have always done goal setting, your board self-evaluation, you need to complete that as well. Again, that's something that can run, just goal setting, as you know, can take a little bit of time, or typically does. But those are all different kinds of workshops, and I can send you actually a list of various programs. If you want to talk about how to implement parliamentary procedure, effective committees, conflict resolution, we have a lot of different programs, and we can customize a program to meet the very specific needs that you identify as a Board of Education. And I think it sends a wonderful message to your staff and to your community. We expect our staff to do professional development and stay up to date. I think it sends a message to your staff and your community that you too are committed to the work that you do. It's Board Member Recognition Month, so I don't want to forget to say thank you to all of you, whether you're brand new or whether you've been on the board for years. The work that you do cannot be replaced. Certainly for what we pay you, definitely cannot be replaced. But I mean that sincerely from the bottom of my heart. As a former educator and a member of staff at NJSBA for 20 plus years, and as a parent and grandparent, I know that the education that New Jersey provides is second to none. And you all are the reason for that, in addition to our professional education staff members. So thank you. I know there aren't a lot of people that come up and say, thank you for what you do. But we do know the kind of work, and it's harder now than it's ever been. And so I recognize that as well. So thank you for that. But we can customize programs to meet whatever your needs are. And I think it also builds teamwork, to do professional development together as a group, because you get to know each other in a different way than when you're sitting at a board meeting like tonight, where you all have on your board suits and your board faces. It enables you to do that in a different way, and I think that's invaluable. Bob?
So, reading the requirements for the board certification. So if we do the 16 credits and we get everything else there, does your certification last another 4 years?
Yes, it just continues to run, and, well, if you continue to do professional development, you can earn master board certification, which is an additional 10 hours, and it's actually named after Carol Larson, and you're probably the only one here who remembers, and I'm sure you do, Carol Larson, who was a field service rep in the county and preceded me a long time ago.
Because like a teacher's contract, we had that checked before we started, and so we would have a check.
All you have to do now in reference to that contract is complete the survey, which your business administrator can do, because it helps us to keep the portal up to date with the latest settlement rates. So it would be when you would have a new contract, but if you just fill out the survey that says, you know, the SHEA contract runs out in 2020 whatever, here are the settlement rates for the remainder of the contract, just because board members go to those portals to look to see, you know, what are the settlement rates across the state, and so we removed that contract analysis from there, which was burdensome. Okay? Yes?
Oh, sorry, I was just going to ask about the board certification. So it's 16 hours in, like, what's the expectation?
Over the course of 4 years.
Oh, it is, sorry, I missed that, over the course of 4 years.
No, you have to look at me for 16 hours in 1 year.
I was going to say.
Painful.
So some of the training you've given us the last 3 years.
Counts, that's what I mean. I didn't have an opportunity to look at your transcript to see how many more you need. And you may not need a whole lot more.
But we could start again now, like we could say.
It's continual. So anything you've accrued in the last 3 years, as long as you finish it by the end of this school year, would count toward your certification. So if you already have on the books 8 credits or 9 credits, okay, and it falls off. So the last year that falls off behind, and you just would continue until you reach that point. Pat?
So it says 7 out of 9. What out of 10? Because we're a 10 member.
So it would be 8 out of 10.
Plus the superintendent.
Plus absolutely the superintendent. Because the notion is that you do it as a team.
But is that 11 then? Are we an 11-member board?
So 8 elected members
Right.
plus
you. I figured you in on it.
Yes, you have to have the superintendent. And you should, because you're a team, you work together. I think it's good to have the business administrator, sorry, Jenny, to have the business administrator. I know. I think it's good because you sit at the board table, so you have a perspective as well. It's a team effort. It's not any one person, doing it themselves. So I think that's beneficial to have your BA as well. Sam?
Sorry, I apologize if we already talked about this, but the policy wellness check?
You just submit it to us, and we'll come back to you and say, these policies are great, you may need to add this policy or that policy, you may want to look at revising a particular policy. There's no cost, our folks do that. And you'll get a letter back that lists, this policy needs revised, or this one hasn't been looked at. Because, again, the notion here is not so much that there's anything wrong with anybody's policy manual, but you want to make sure that you are operating within your policy. Oftentimes, boards don't delete policies that are no longer operable, that they no longer operate. They don't do that. For example, they may have moved from committees to committee of the whole, and they still have all their committees, standing committees listed in their policy, even though they no longer do that. So you would just remove that. So that's what that is, a policy wellness check. It's part of your dues, so.
Can people share this presentation?
I'm going to send it in a PDF to Jenny tonight. And that list of all those relatives, just write in cousin. Okay? All right? All right, Brian.
Just to follow up, and not to be overly burdensome on your time.
No.
We are interested, as I think you might be able to pick up on, additional training, and I'm certainly supportive of the school board model, having earned the Larson.
Carol Larson.
Twice.
Carol E. Larson, yes.
Yes, and it really was impactful for another board that I worked with. I do want to share that my work with the board here has been very, very enjoyable. I find them to be a highly functioning board.
I trained them. No, I'm kidding. I'm sorry. I just couldn't resist. I'm sorry.
Hey, you should take full credit.
No.
But
They deserve the credit.
I will say that the functionality of their adherence to the committee model is something that is to be commended and certainly celebrated. It's been a great piece of transition for me to be able to kind of inherit that model that was pre-existing. It really is very nicely done. So I want the entirety of the board to know that, and the structure and the function that you have that's operating here isn't typically the model everywhere. So you should be proud of it.
I do have to pipe in and thank Gwen for that, because I guess it's probably been 4 years, 5 maybe, where we did have Gwen come in and help us. Bob, you probably remember, we needed something.
So I think our committees, when I first got on the board, our committees structure has evolved
Yeah.
in very small steps, and it was painful at some times because it changed what they were used to. And it was, sometimes I push back, I'm used to something,
Yeah.
but I agree with Dr. Groschel, where we are now is like, we're like 95%, what I think a committee structure should be.
Yeah.
And it took over 10 years, because there's a lot of things that by going back these long time, like we would have a committee meeting the same day as a board meeting,
Yeah, when I
That's
first
not
started.
good, And,
Not if you're voting on that stuff.
right, and then we weren't taking any types of minutes or anything like that, but it's taken a while, but I think it's helped the board get things done. And that's important.
And to have all board members feel like even if they're not sitting on a committee, they have an understanding of what transpired, and have the information they need for the public meeting. So I think it's been, I very distinctly remember that meeting, Gwen, where you helped us, kind of structure those committee notes and the format and all of that.
Yeah. Happy. I'm glad it works. Thank you. You all took advantage of it. So, all right. Well, I look forward to seeing you soon. I will send you how many credits, and as soon as you want to schedule something, just let me know so that we can set something up if that's how you want to do it, and what topics it is you would like to address. I'd be happy to do it. Okay. All right. Thank you. Good to see you all. All right.
Yeah, they're out there.
Okay, so we can start. Okay, good evening, everybody. Before we get started, I just need a motion to resume. Ms. Santoro in a second. Ms. Nathans, thank you so much. We have just finished our annual ethics board training, and we are now going to move into the always much anticipated report of the superintendent, so I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Brochel.
Thank you, Ms. Frenda. I'm going to ask for a little bit of support from my friend Ricky in the back with moving the slide tonight. So first order of business, and it's typically the best order of business of the night when you hear from those of us, or those students that are out there on the front lines that are in our schools and supporting out to the board. The first set of students that we have represent the climate and culture team at Bernardsville Middle School, and we do have some news about the climate and culture team that has hit the press in the last month or so that is included later on in the report. But Ashley Mann and Owen Wolf are here from the middle school, and they are going to give a report of all things climate and culture related over at Bernardsville Middle School. So we're going to invite up Ashley Mann first, and then Owen is going to follow.
Hello everyone, I am Ashley Mann and I'm in 7th grade at BMS. I am also on the Student Culture and Climate team. I am the treasurer on our student council. This is my 3rd year in student council. Today I will be speaking about the book, The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton, and giving a student council update. The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton is a requirement for every 7th grader in the school to read, and for a good reason. This book features 2 main social groups, the Socius and the Greasers, with the main characters Ponyboy being a greaser. While each group has their struggles, they don't dare to show the opposing side their weakness. That is, until one event changes everything, including how they interact with each other. Thanks to our teachers and the Culture and Climate team, we have organized an Outsiders Day, where all the 7th graders will meet up to watch a movie, all while dressing up as one of the many characters. Many look forward to Outsiders Day during literacy. As you know, Hugs for Brady is the charity we will be donating to this year. In case you were wondering, Hugs for Brady is not a charity to console Tom Brady for losing 2 Super Bowls to the Giants, but rather that is dedicating to helping kids with cancer. Our goal for this year is to raise $2,000, and thanks to the candy cane sale, we have raised about 1/3 of our goal. Recently, we have been focusing on the upcoming candy gram sale, which is occurring on the week of Valentine's Day. We will be selling heart-shaped lollipops for $1 for people to give to their friends. Now I'm going to turn it over to Owen.
Good evening. My name is Owen Wolf and I am in 7th grade at BMS. This is my first time speaking at a Board of Education meeting. I'm a member of the Students' Culture and Climate Committee. You may have read about it in the paper, but I'm going to tell you about the very popular National Spaghetti Day we hosted this month at BMS. We decided to organize an event at lunch to raise school spirit. We worked with Machio's Food Services to come up with a delicious food menu on National Spaghetti Day. This crowd-pleasing menu consisted of spaghetti with marinara sauce, with a side of meatballs, garlic bread, and some delicious roasted broccoli. To add to the experience, we played classic Italian music and presented a slideshow with a ton of fun facts about pasta and spaghetti for people to read in the cafeteria and in the main entrance. We changed the table layout and even added red tablecloths. Many students told me after lunch that this was a cool way to lighten up their school day. We hope to make this a yearly event. This is all part of our amazing Culture and Climate Committee, where we strive to make our school a fun and welcoming community for students. This committee is made up of 6th, 7th, and 8th graders who dedicate time to coming up with fun events for our school to enjoy. We thank our amazing Culture and Climate team teachers, Mrs. Rizzuto and Mrs. Pasquarelli, for supporting and organizing our team meetings.
Ashley and Owen, that was very well done, and I must say that the power and the scope of the climate and culture work that goes on at the middle school is not gone unnoticed, and what I like the most about it is that it's predominantly student-driven, and the adults just kind of help get the ideas into action, and it really means a lot to us that we have so many great kids at the middle school who have so many great ideas, and they're willing to put them into action. So very well done. And we have our 2 speakers from the high school that I see out in the audience here. Gabrielle and Madison are here tonight.
Hello, I'm Madison, one of the student liaisons for BHS. The winter sports at BHS are midway through the season, all of which have been very successful. The boys' winter track team's 4x800 meter relay finished as state Group 2 champs and qualified to go for the Nike Indoor National Championships. Along with them, just last night, Brody Watt ran a 9-minute and 32-second 3,200 meters, Ben Connell ran a 9-minute and 34-second 3,200 meters, and Trevor Sardis reached 6 feet in the high jump, qualifying all three of them for the nationals as well. The boys' distance medley relay also finished third at the SCIAA Championships. The boys' basketball team are off to a great start with a 9-6 record right now. The girls' basketball team are currently 7-4. Fencing is doing well as well, where both boys and girls teams have won the Somerset County Championships. The girls' team is 4-1 and the boys' team is 3-2. The Bernard Somerville Middlesex ice hockey team is also currently 3-6-1. Balin Shankman, our goalie, who's committed to play hockey for St. Olaf College, got her 1,000th career save, which is a record. The Bernard ski team had their first race this week, where girls placed 4th and boys placed 5th. The swim team has moved up a division this season. The boys team is currently 4-1 and the girls are 0-5, but they are still putting out record times. The wrestling team is 3-1 right now, and they've finished 2nd at the Blue Knight Invitational in Irvington and 3rd at the East Brunswick tournament. Senior and captain Nick Villani has also won the gold medal at the county tournament. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Gabrielle Denicola, the other student representative for the high school. For clubs and activities, the Pinnacle has been named the first class magazine in the 2022 NCTE Recognizing Excellence in Art and Literary Magazine. They also came in first in the ASPA. The Crimson has received a Best of Snow award for Ella Patel's writing, The Pros and Cons of BHS's New Internet Software. That's the first one this year and gives the Crimson 5 out of its 6 badges that it needs. The Bernardian has put out their senior superlative surveys and is nearing the end of creating the 2023 to 2024 yearbook. The Girl Up Empowerment Initiative, which was just recently funded, hosted its first speaker this year, a representative from Safe and Sound Somerset, an organization that gave a presentation regarding healthy relationships in high school and beyond. Key Club has just ended its first ever day of service. They went to the Community Food Bank of New Jersey and helped to package 471 boxes. The robotics team has had 2 competitions in the last few months. They are scheduled to host 9 other teams for a multi-school STEM-based competition. The Physics Olympics took place 2 weekends ago, where BHS had several teams participating, one of which finished 2nd overall, beating 38 other teams. The musical has started practicing. Nathaniel Denicola has been casted to play Joseph in Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat. The Madrigals just recently hosted 8th graders who are currently enrolled in choir in order to encourage them to continue their musical careers in high school. Grade specific, the seniors had their Night of the Stars this Friday at the Old Mill Inn in Basking Ridge. This event has students come dressed as their favorite Hollywood star, musical group, sports star, TV characters, or other creative costumes, featuring a DJ, dance parties, prizes, competitions, and more. For incoming freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors, the guidance department has started scheduling this week. The students that are currently in 8th to 11th grade got to make their course selections for next year, choosing which classes they want to take part in. Thank you.
So the next item on our agenda is a recognition of former board member Kathy Tober, who is out in the audience. I'm going to ask Kathy to come on up here with me for a few moments, if you could. Kathy is no stranger to this room. She was on the board here for 7 years, conducting many a meeting in this room, and it's great to have you back. So Kathy was on the board for 7 years, and I had only a short opportunity to work with you. Your service to the communities has been very much noted, and for me, as far as my transition goes, It was such a superior experience working closely with you, being able to understand some context items that are so important to when a superintendent starts. Certainly, there are a lot of great relationships that are important here, but from my view, it's such an important value that I hold to have a strong relationship, not only with the board in its entirety, but also with each individual board member. And you had the ability as a board member to be really thoughtful and really considerate and really kind when you were asked to consider different initiatives and different items that came in front of the board. And as a superintendent, that's all any superintendent could ever ask for, that a board member provides thoughtful, introspective, and well-crafted questions, guidance, thoughts, and positions on all sorts of different initiatives. And in my view, you are an outstanding board member, and I did speak with the board president, Mrs. Frenda, and I said, you know, we should really be in the business of honoring the work of our volunteers in town. And happens to be Board Member Appreciation Month, and you and the board up here are the only ones that really know how much work that goes into being a board member. You don't get paid. You have to read hundreds of pages of information from me and think about different policies, and really you have to be an expert in a lot of different ways, and you have to get yourself up to speed and educate yourself in concert with your superintendent, your BA, and the rest of your board members. And you did that, and you did that very, very well, and you certainly demonstrated that you're a leader in that respect, and you're a leader in these communities. And it was a privilege to be able to work with you for the last 4 months or so, and it's even more of a privilege to know you and count you as a friend. And I appreciate that. So we're going to spend some time as a board here to honor the work that you did and talk a little bit about you, if you don't mind. I'm going to get my glasses on because we do have a formal resolution that the board is going to adopt tonight. It's a resolution honoring Kathy Tober for her service to the Somerset Hills School District in her role as a member of the Somerset Hills Board of Education. Whereas the Somerset Hills Board of Education recognizes Kathy Tober for her commitment to public education and carrying out her responsibilities in a legal and ethical manner. Whereas the Somerset Hills Board of Education recognizes Kathy Tober for her dedication to enhancing the educational welfare of the district students and for her focus on supporting all students and their individual needs. Whereas Kathy Tober made numerous positive contributions over the years by way of community outreach to the Somerset Hills communities. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Somerset Hills Board of Education that the members of the Board of Education hereby commend Kathy Tober for her diligent service to the Somerset Hills School District. When the Somerset Hills Board of Education adjourns this day, it does so in honor of Kathy Tober. The Board of Education Secretary is directed to have this resolution reflected in the permanent minutes of the Somerset Hills Board of Education on this 24th day of January 2024. This is signed by Samantha Frenda, Board of Education President, and I signed it as well. She's trying to run back to her seat already. But we also, in honor of your service to the board and to all the communities that we serve, we have a plaque, and it says, "Excellence, to honor your service to education by word and deed. Your presence has enriched the lives of students and served as an example for all. Kathy Tober, in appreciation for your dedicated service to the Somerset Hills School District." Okay, so we have another great night. I think I see some soccer guys hanging out in the hallway. I see my guys over there waving, and I see a couple soccer moms here with cameras, right? Always a camera, right? Always a camera. So I saw Coach LaSpada milling around before. There he is. By the way, he's also on the agenda tonight to coach a middle school sports team. Can't stay away, Coach. Okay, so...
free lunch every day.
Okay, well, you got to be careful when Mr. Hoppy promises things, but you'll learn. Okay, so boys soccer team is the third of 4 teams that we're in the process of honoring because they really did achieve great things this soccer season. I met Coach LaSpada in preseason. We're out on the turf, introduced myself to him, and we just kind of hit it off. And he immediately started complaining about the schedule. You don't understand, Dr. B, Group 4. And I said, I understand that you're a heck of a coach, and I understand that you got some great kids here, and just enjoy the journey. And you know what he did in August, and September, and October, and as he got into November, he enjoyed that journey. And the kids had this upward trajectory all year long, playing those Group 4 teams, schools twice the size at least of Bernard's High School, and every game, every possession, they really did get better. They started to gel, and they really performed at a very high level. They ended up as a state semifinalist in Group 2, which is extremely hard to do. They ended up winning the state sectional championship for the Group 2 North 2 region, which again is very, very difficult to do. They ended up losing in the state semifinal game to the eventual state champion. And for anybody here that's a soccer fan that has had an opportunity to see Ramsey High School play, you'll understand some of the complexities of that defense. But our boys were right on the doorstep all game long. And you know, it was great to be a part of their journey this year. And they're fine young men, and they're led by fine adults in this district. And the board, along with me, felt that it behooves us to bring these young men in and to bring these coaches in and to honor them for their excellence throughout the season. So we have a resolution that we are going to honor tonight, and I won't read all of them, but I'll read the cover one. Whereas the Somerset Hills Board of Education recognizes that as the world of, and this is for the coaches, coaching student athletes continues to evolve, it requires hundreds of hours to make deep and broad advancements, and thus give special commendation to those who perform the coaching roles in the district. Coach LaSpada and his staff are going to receive this. The Somerset Hills Board of Education recognizes that student engagement is a critical outcome of the high school experience, and thus gives special commendation to coaches who lead, guide, and inspire their athletes. Joe LaSpada and his staff are part of an athletic leadership team whose shared goal is to afford every student athlete the opportunity to learn and work in highly competitive settings. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Somerset Hills Board of Education that the board hereby commend Joe LaSpada and his coaching staff for leading the boys soccer team to victory at the NJSIAA New North 2 Group 2 Sectional Championship. When the Somerset Hills Board adjourns on this day, it does so in honor of the coaching staffs, and the Board of Education Secretary is directed to have this resolution reflected in the permanent minutes of the Board of Education. So at this point, I'm going to invite Coach Joe LaSpada, Alan Thurlow, who can't be with us tonight, and Fernando Rivera. And we have a host of players hanging out in the back here. They have a resolution as well. Whereas the Somerset Hills Board of Education gives special honor and commendation to those who perform at the highest athletic level with effort, responsibility, and a positive attitude. Whereas our athletes are part of the Bernards High School boys soccer team, and they have distinguished themselves as true champions whom we can all be proud. Be it resolved that by the Somerset Hills Board of Education, that the members of the board hereby commend our student athletes for their strong athletic accomplishments, talent, and skill, and for the honor of being crowned sectional champion by the NJSIAA. Whereas the Somerset Hills Board of Education adjourns on this day, it does so in honor of the achievements earned by our student athletes, and the Board of Education Secretary is directed to have this resolution reflected in the permanent minutes of the board. So, men, this means that forever and ever and ever, you're going to be in the lore of our board meeting minutes, and you can show your kids and grandkids and aunts and uncles down the line. So this is a big deal, and it's a big deal to the board, it's a big deal to us at the district level, and we're going to call you up one by one and honor you. So first is Valdemar Ahlstrom.
Yeah, couldn't be here swimming
All right, he's swimming.
tonight, yeah.
Okay. Willin Candia Carbonbella. Adon Chopra Vigo. Neil Chayanath. Michael Dooley. Colin Fraunfelder. Owen Fresalone. Charles Giebel. Basketball. Jason Jimenez. Jeremy Gutierrez Diaz. Joseph Isasi. Nathaniel Lynn. Jacob Marquez. Cyrus Merom Stami. Kyle Morris. Victor Panasic. Samuel Rios Villagra. Tim Koch. Spencer Saltz. Garrett Sr. Finn Spitaleri. Alan Villagra. One final congratulations for all the boys soccer honorees tonight. Well done, men.
Thank you very much. That was outstanding. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Coach. I'm going to continue with my superintendent's report. We have some updates as far as some news-related items that have hit the press in the last month or so since we've last had a regular public meeting. We had Dee West, who has visited the middle school and met with every 7th grade student over at the middle school. He has a very positive message. He has a message of resilience, and he has a message of positive thinking and goal setting. And he met with 7th grade students at our middle school, and it was very positive, and I was able to be at a few of those sessions. The kids really connected well with him, and it was a pleasure to be able to have him. So that article was in the news as well. We have a staff spotlight article that was written regarding Mr. Carey, who's an assistant principal at Bedwell, and he's done certainly a lot as an assistant principal at Bedwell. This particular article was for his work with the Rutgers Marching Band. He was marching with them during their Thanksgiving Day parade. He has a kind of like a quasi-director role when he's not playing assistant principal with Rutgers, and will be going over to London with them in a few years. Article speaks to what he got out of being in a marching band as a young man in his high school years, and also as he moved through Rutgers. So that was a fun one to write. High school had an initiative to raise money for Somerset County Food Bank. It's called A Beard and a Buck, and $825 was raised in the month of December, and there were a host of men at the high school who used the opportunity to grow some facial hair for a good cause. So definitely good stuff. The climate and culture team over at the middle school, we had an article written for them called A Passion for Pasta, and our speakers tonight spoke about the work that the climate and culture team does. I'd like to reinforce the power of student-led decision-making and student-led initiatives that take place at the middle school is a powerful way to help develop our young men and our young women. The pasta day really was a hit. I personally got a kick out of it. I love the red tablecloths, the Italian music. All the kids love the pasta itself, as many middle school age kids tend to gravitate towards that as their carb of choice. So it really was a great day, and kids were happy all the way around. And I do know that those students that had a hand in developing that program were just so proud of themselves, of the work that kind of came together. And we talk a lot about like project-based learning and being able to apply certain skills in a group setting, and this was a great example of that. So it was great to see. Mr. Hoppy, athletic director at the high school here for many years, is being honored by the Directors of Athletics Association of New Jersey as a regional Award of Merit recipient. In order to be an Award of Merit recipient, you have to be nominated by your peers in outside districts, and does speak to the level of passion that he has for athletics and commitment to the area. And many of us know Mr. Hoppy as being a former student and a longtime resident in the district, and that's been covered in the news, and it's a point of pride for the district. We have a Science League competition team, particularly at the high school level. Our physics students performed well in initial competitions and continue to perform well, and we are deeply proud of them and the work that they're doing in higher level science, not only at the high school but out in the community in competitions. So they're just in the beginning of competition season. They are doing extraordinarily well, and Mr. Ferrara and his team of advisors certainly are proud of the work that they're doing. And we have an everyday hero that has been named at the high school as well, and we are, certainly very, very proud, and that's been covered in the press as well. I'd like to take some time to give an update as to where we are with the development of our communication plan. We did administer a survey in the community predominantly throughout the month of December. We were collecting responses. Throughout the month of January, we've still been accepting responses, and they have come in. We had 277 participants in our survey. They were able to provide over 705 comments, anecdotal comments regarding their experience in all areas of communications. They provided over 14,000 words for us to analyze, and we were deeply involved in that process as well, totaling 42 pages of typewritten feedback. And that's really beneficial to us as we start to work towards the development of a communication plan and developing structures that are meeting the needs of the end users, so moms and dads dads, the community members, students, staff members, faculty, trying our best to meet all the individual needs of all those folks that they serve, or that we serve. So if you're a student, you're a community member, parents, they were able to kind of outline, what their role was and, what schools they're connected to, if any. We asked 3 questions for each school. With regard to our current school communications, what's working well? Secondarily, what needs improvement? And what would you like to see either the school or the district add? And it was very open-ended, and users were provided the opportunity to provide feedback in a way that was, very open, and gave them the ability to do so with anonymity if they so chose. And like I said, we certainly did get a lot of information back, and we're able to begin the process of sharing that out with individual schools, departments, the district. So my role here and my role with the board also was surveyed as well. Overall, I'm going to ask you to go back one slide, my friend Ricky. Overall, we did have a Likert scale that just assessed general satisfaction. The range there, depending on the school or the district, ranged anywhere from 3.8 to 4.17, and ultimately reflects that users are generally satisfied with our communication, but they did offer multiple areas in which they would recommend be addressed. Some we were aware of, some we were not, which was very, very good. We also have we have the ability to analyze our Friday folder push-outs to the community, and essentially, about 2/3 of the school-based community are accessing their Friday folder each Friday. For reasons unknown, the district level connectivity is a bit higher than the school level, at around anywhere between 72 and 76%. But by and large, about 2/3 of folks that have the ability to access are doing so. So there's a piece there that are not. There's a third of parents that aren't accessing them on a week-to-week basis. So we have just a sample of percentages broken down by school and broken down by the district platform. Almost every user, above 90%, is accessing the Friday folder from a desktop and not an iPad or a handheld or a phone, which did come as a bit of a surprise to me. But that was good information to learn. Once users have engaged with the Friday folder, there's not a lot of exploration with the links that are inside of the folder, which does speak to a desire that survey respondents articulated as well. They just want to see the message. They don't want to click. They just want it all there. If it's important to send, just have it typewritten. No clicking, no downloading, no PDF. Just have it there, which is, again, very good information to have. The clicking rates are very low in comparison to what I went in expecting, and it does speak to some desires that folks have. And on top of that, we do have a percentage of bounce backs, so incorrect emails are in the system, which gives us an opportunity to kind of clean that up, go through the errors, break them down by student, reach out to families just to make sure that we have the right contact information that you want us to have. So we'll go through that process and kind of clean up. We do know which messages are not getting to the mailboxes, and we'll go through the process of identifying what accounts they are. Overall, the general feedback is that the communication efforts have been noted by the community. First and foremost, the mechanism of using the platform that we utilize, School Messenger, that platform and that interface from the end user perspective is somewhat clumsy, where there's downloading of files rather than just having something show up on your account. And again, we don't want to be an impediment to people engaging with us. And if it was written once, it was probably written several hundred times, that folks don't want to download PDFs. They don't want to download if they don't have to. The website is and has been a discussion, certainly at the committee level, as having challenges in the end user experience, finding information, navigating information, and moving through. And that is an area of priority for us, particularly as we develop our budget for the following school year. Some feedback around the non-English speaking population. There's some feedback that's asking us to essentially kind of thread the needle and provide everybody a better experience overall. Some folks indicated there's too much information. Some folks indicated there's just enough. Some folks that there's not enough. A question of the Friday folder usability sort of has emerged through some of the comments and some of the feedback, which has been helpful for us. And the way that we send our messages out, particularly from the central office, is something that needs to be thought out a bit better regarding what is informational and what is emergent. So working through that as well. And there's also some feedback asking us to enhance some special topic communication. So that's the general feedback at this point that I can share with the community and with the board. So next steps at the school level and district level, we're analyzing and coding data just to develop some trends, and we are reflecting on some of the end user engagement desires that we have in order to refine our practices. So a clear, effective communication is getting from the schoolhouse to district homes and even broader. I would expect that in April, I'll be able to help inform the development of a communications plan, and then in May, present that out to the board. So we are we're essentially in the middle. We've gotten a lot of information, a lot of productive information, and we're looking forward to taking the next steps there. Switching gears, this month on the agenda, there is an item on the agenda that's called the Memorandum of Agreement between law enforcement and education officials. So that is a document that is written and authorized by the State Attorney General. It's written with multiple lenses at the table: law enforcement, school officials, some lobby groups that that every few years they modify the Memorandum of Agreement. Tonight I'm going to ask you to approve acceptance of the Memorandum of Agreement as a board. What this document does, it's the administrative direction for any matter that is connected to student issues that kind of merge into law enforcement issues. The 2023 version has some edits that addresses the possibility of bias. It addresses the use of body-worn cameras by police officers who work inside of schools or respond to a school. And it also addresses marijuana based on the decriminalization of marijuana and the creation of regulated cannabis as well. There are some new sections inside of the memorandum of agreement that we will outline here. So there's obligation to enforce is a new section that's been added. Again, a section on marijuana, hashish, and cannabis. Body-worn cameras and body-worn camera footage and FERPA is addressed inside of the MOA, as are student records and the handle with care process. And the handle with care is a law that requires police officers to notify school districts and school principals when in fact a child has been involved in a police matter. We're not advised of the nuances and the specifics of the matter, just that there was involvement there in order to, in the event that a student has an episode during the day or anything like that. Handle with care is designed to increase articulation between the parties. There's been some clarifying information that has created particular law enforcement units, has discussed liaisons with law enforcement, anabolic steroids, date rape drugs, Jimson weed, designer drugs, opioids, and an exception to identify disclosures. Go ahead, Ricky. There's also information in there regarding the requirement to report incidents involving firearms and dangerous weapons, responding to non-mandatory reports, reporting of HIB by law enforcement officials to schools, and reporting of HIB from schools to law enforcement, reporting of sexting, live streaming videos, and electronic smoking devices is in there as well. So we utilize administratively the memorandum of agreement in a variety of ways. And if you're a school principal, if you're a superintendent, the memorandum of agreement is something that you always have at arm's length. It's a tool for us. It is something, again, that the board adopts. It does assist us with very clear direction on how to move certain matters forward to law enforcement. So the school administration and the district administration meets with the chiefs of police from all of the towns that we serve, and we've done that. We refer to the MOA, we call it, when matters arise, and then we adhere to that to the letter and articulate very closely with the police department. I sign off that the memorandum of agreement has been read and understood, and we've had articulation meetings with local law enforcement. Chief of police signs off on that. County Superintendent of Schools signs off on that. Somerset County Prosecutor signs off on the MOA as well. And the Board of Education does accept the MOA as required and supports me and the administration in carrying out the MOA. So tonight, there was a motion for the board to accept the memorandum of agreement. I'd like to give the board and the community an update regarding feasibility study with respect to Olcott field lights, and it's what I call our first interim report. So the charge has been is to meet a language inside of the current strategic plan that was adopted back in 2022 to develop and implement processes to examine the feasibility of installing LED lights at Olcott Field through an open and engaging process with district stakeholders. So essentially what we've done is we've started that process, and I would say that we're at the beginning there. We did convene the public last June over here in the PAC. We had about 30 members of the public attended. And then we also had our first focus group session on December 7th, 2023. We did invite members of the Somerset Hills communities to participate regarding an investigation with respect to the feasibility of installing LED lights and including that in the long-range facility plan for the district. We had 45 participants throughout the communities that volunteered, which I thought was a very good number. We had a balanced group. Certainly a variety of views were presented in there. There were four broad areas that were studied by the focus groups. They identified positive outcomes for LED installation. They identified concerns and drawbacks for LED installation. They highlighted what was learned during the presentations that evening, and they assisted in the development of and focusing our future work. We had a particular format. When folks came, they were randomly assigned to one of four groups. The desire there was to ensure that groups were balanced and groups were varied. So you essentially had mixed groups of varying views and opinions and all for different perspectives and insights, all of which were really well taken and very well intended. We provided structure and a kind of a framework of what our intended outcomes were, how long we were going to be together that night. We spent approximately 2 hours together that night, and I found it to be very productive. We reviewed what I'll call 2023 era LED lighting installations, and I wanted them, just the focus groups, to see what the installations of 2023 look like. So there's one image that they looked at, and we're just going to slide through here, Ricky, if we could. Here's a second image, here's a third image, and a fourth image, and a fifth image. So they had a host of images, and certainly it was provided some good food for thought and feedback, et cetera. We had 4 facilitators that night that facilitated focus groups. Each facilitator saw every member of the public that participated that night. Dr. Butler, Mrs. DeMarco, Dr. Nigel, Mr. Hoppy served as facilitators. Their role was to record all feedback onto a big giant poster board, ask questions, answer questions, clarify questions, and engage the folks that came out to participate. We had 16 posters that we were able to create, and then we were able to start to take the feedback from those posters and really drill into what's the next level of work that future focus groups would need. Nearing the end of the session, we had all of our artwork, as we say, posted on the walls all the way around the media center at the high school, and each participant was given a stack of stickers. We were trying to replicate the Facebook social media type of engagement, so if there was a statement on the posters that spoke to you as an individual, you put a sticker next to it. You could have 100 stickers if you wanted. If everything spoke to you, put a sticker next to everything. So you started to look at how many comments got certain stickers, and you really got a sense of, okay, this is really important to this group, and then you started to see things emerge. So the gallery walk piece really is where you started to see the emergence of particular areas of priority that needed to reflect our next level of work. So the gallery walk was very productive. From an overarching perspective, there were positive outcomes that were noted through the gallery walk regarding upgrading the Olcott Field facility to LED. Number one was safety for participants and safety for those that attend our events there. Second, positive outcomes focus around the equity of use and access to our facilities for a variety of sports. Currently, we're very, very limited on when we use the lights, and there was some thought there regarding enhancing access for the students that we're serving. Third positive outcome revolved around the reputation and image of the school and the communities of Somerset Hills. Concerns and drawbacks for an LED upgrade. First and foremost, and I can't stress this enough for the board, that is the Olcott Avenue impact and the surrounding roads that really we share a neighborhood with here at Bernards High School. We need to be good neighbors in any initiative that we move forward with. The impact around Olcott Avenue is of the utmost importance to the focus group. And certainly needs to stay at the forefront of any further examination. In particular, what our intended use of the facility is, right? We are a high school. We need to focus on being a high school, and certainly not moving in the direction of a community center. And I think they're two very different things. Particularly, those of us with school-age kids that go around and play sports in different facilities. We understand that our role here as a district is to be good neighbors, is to understand the lens that those folks that live on and around Olcott Avenue present. Second area of concern and drawback for an LED upgrade really is in the area of economics. And I say this because I did not present economic information to them. We did not, we just don't have economic information. But that certainly is an area of future work that we have spoken with the Finance Committee and the F&O Committee on as well. And the third drawback is in the area of aesthetics. How tall are the poles? How do they look? How does it impact the neighborhood? Those are pretty significant concerns that certainly need to be defined for the focus groups so they can continue to contribute to the district in what I consider to be a positive way. So the groups as a whole learned about Olcott Avenue's impact and also enhancements to safety that the lights do provide to the district. And in order to focus future focus group engagements, we do need to really hone in from a policy perspective how Olcott Avenue would be impacted from the use of LED lights on the field out there. What does our long-range facility plan look like, not only at Olcott, but in the property itself, and again, economics. So how does it look? And what is the end user experience? How does it impact kids, and how does it impact the neighborhoods, and is there a balance there? There were some areas that there seemed to be some agreement. There's no comparison between the 2023 era lights and the current model lights that we utilize on a temporary basis. There was some agreement and understanding that operational norms of our facilities require definition. And so there needs to be a deep and broad articulation of how the district intends to use use this facility. That work in developing our operational norms does take place through the policy committee of the board in order for the board to codify their intentions for our facility usage. So that's kind of how a board would be involved in this. And then again, an analysis of any economic impacts that taxpayers should be prepared for the future. So I do have some recommendations in order for us to move through this process on behalf of the board. My first recommendation is to approve the submission of the interim report from the focus group, and I'd like to point out that the focus group really did come together, and again, we all kind of come with our own lens, and we come with our own experiences, and I was really happy with the way that lenses and experiences were articulated outward. Second recommendation is to authorize the superintendent and the business administrator to commission a lighting system plan with our professional service providers for the sole purpose of supporting the focus groups. This does not mean that you would be authorizing us to develop a plan to install. It means that you would be authorizing us to develop a plan to support the further work of the focus groups. Long story short, they need more information in order to provide feedback. Authorize the superintendent and business administrator to prevent relevant economic variables to the board and subsequently the community, so there's a very clear understanding on cost. And examination and development of facility usage language for the policy committee, including consideration for the health, safety, and welfare of the residents neighboring Bernards High School. And I can't impress upon the board and the community enough that health, safety, and welfare was a point that was articulated multiple times over to the facilitators. And it's important that we memorialize those points here. And develop facility tours for newly installed lighting projects in other areas that neighboring areas, or residential areas rather. So many times in your high schools, your stadium is kind of tucked away, from other parts of your communities. In this case, it's in a neighborhood, and I think that we need to look at new projects that were installed that border some neighborhoods. It's my intention to get back together with the focus groups with some further information in March and June of '24, and then in October of '24. And my goal here is to provide the board with as much information as possible in order to arrive at a decision. That's my role here, and we're making a lot of progress, and certainly starting to drill into providing more definition to specifics on how the end user would be impacted in the neighborhoods, and certainly how the end user would be impacted at the school level. If you're a child here that participates in athletics that utilizes that field. So again, I just want to provide some final comments. The initial report that we're providing, again, is just the first of probably 4 at least reports that we will provide to you. The initial engagement with the community was, again, very balanced. Everyone kind of comes with their own experience, and they come with their buckets, right? Like, I've got stuff in my bucket that I want to get out there, and that was really refreshing to have what I consider to be a productive focus group session and a productive outcome. And I'd like to acknowledge members of the focus groups that participated. It was very productive. in addition to the facilitators who did a nice job capturing what was being shared. And at this point, Madam President, I will entertain any questions or comments from the board on this particular item, if there are any.
Does anybody have anything?
When you have a tour of any of these sites, will board members and members of the public be invited?
Yes. Yeah, we have an active email that the community has been apprised of and will continue to be apprised of, that they can sign up to be a member of. And we blast out messages that way. Okay. It's SHSD focus groups at shsd.org, and we'll push that out. And so people can email that address and say, I want to be included, and my assistant has a growing list of folks that we push messages out to. We'll also push them out, to the media as well.
So do you think a tour would be an actual game, or let's say a high school we would show up at night, they turn the lights on, and we would all see?
So if it's winter, which I don't expect, it would be that. Okay. If it's spring, which is probably more realistic for any facility tours, it would be, at an evening event. I would want to see not only how the folks on the field, what is the quality there, but I'd also like to see, okay, where does the light start and stop? And how does that impact the bleachers? How does it impact behind the bleachers? How does it impact the end zones? And I think those points are important. Certainly we have homes on Old Army that border an end zone. And so those nuances are important to kind of understand and embrace as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anybody else? Okay.
Okay, I have one more slide. Thank you for indulging me tonight. Looking ahead, we're working on developing our budget for fiscal year 25. February edition comes out right around Valentine's Day. The February edition of Pathways to Success comes out, and we're trying to deliver our newsletters around major holidays. Somehow Valentine's Day became a major holiday in newsletter land, so it seemed like a good opportunity since our December edition. We've had some discussion about Board of Education training. We certainly had a training session tonight. Feasibility study for Olcott Field is continuing, as is our communication plan, and we have a growing set of resources regarding Somerset County School District news on our website. If you go under our district tab, we have Mia in my office, who serves as our media point of contact, and she probably has about 25 stories up there that have transpired throughout the year. So we are uploading them, it seems like 2 or 3 stories a week. So you can certainly look there. And that does conclude the superintendent's report for this evening.
Thank you very much, Dr. Brochel, and thank you, a huge thank you to the work that was done to compile the reports on the communications plan and the feedback you gave us regarding the focus groups. I want to thank all of the members of the community that participated in those focus groups. The information obtained from that is going to be extraordinarily helpful as we continue the process. And now at this time, we are going to have... Okay. We're going to have public comments for actionable agenda items. We very much welcome input from the public. Public comments are welcome at this time on any actionable agenda item. Towards the end of the meeting, there is a second public forum on any topic. Please state your name and address. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. At the 3-minute mark, I will interrupt the speaker in order to allow any other members of the public who wish to make a comment the opportunity to do so. but an individual may speak a second time after all others who wish to speak on a topic have been heard, for a total of 2 times at the podium. Please understand that our public forums are not structured as question and answer sessions, but are offered as opportunities to share your thoughts with the board. In instances where the board feels there is a misunderstanding or inaccuracy, the board president or superintendent may address the comment. In accordance with New Jersey statute, the board will not discuss matters regarding specific personnel. Public comments will be limited to 30 minutes. Mr. Marco will set her timer when each speaker begins for 3 minutes. Just a reminder that all comments be kept respectful, as we ask the audience to be respectful of the speaker. And with that, I will open public comments.
We do have to lower this. My name is Janice Virtue. I live on 17 Charlesworth Avenue in town in Bernardsville. My statement is regarding actionable item number 3 under facilities and operations on the agenda. Please note that any and all aspects which may be considered and subsequently approved must define how it will impact the health, welfare, and safety of the neighboring residents. I do want to thank Dr. Rochel, I'm having difficulty pronouncing your name, for recognizing that, but I did want to comment further on it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Would anybody else like to make a comment on actionable agenda items?
Hi, thank you everyone for letting us speak tonight. I'm Mary Kellogg. I live at 36 Olcott Avenue, directly across from the high school football field, and I was not able to attend the meeting in December, so I just had a couple thoughts on this to bounce before the board. One of my thoughts is that there is the school district, not necessarily the field, but the school district buildings are part of the state historic preservation district in Bernardsville, and it's my understanding that any increase in usage of the driveway area is going to trigger a review by the State Historic Preservation Board. So I wanted to make sure that the board is aware of this and it's part of your thought process going forward. This would not just include rental of the field, but also increasing the usage of the field by, say, local sports teams or sports clubs that aren't associated with the high school. So it's just a process that the board will have to go through if that is in fact proposed. My second thought is, years ago when we went through this the last time, the neighbors had a group, and we as a group went to the Board of Adjustment along with the school board. A lot of you are aware of what happened in the community. And we did a balloon test, and we floated balloons 80 feet in the air where those stanchions would have been out on the field to create a visual, not only from Olcott Avenue, because obviously that is most impacted, but those balloons were visible coming down Mount Airy Road. They were visible up on Somerset Street. They were visible all over Bernardsville in places you wouldn't have even thought. So my thinking is, if the board is going to go through with this study, part of the study should be to create this balloon test again. Put those balloons up in the air at the proposed height, and let's see who's going to be able to see those lights. Some people will look up at them. Some people will look directly into them. Some people will look down on them from parts across town. At the time that was happening, there was a crane on the school property that was building the addition, and that crane was a certain height, made it easy for people to realize that the lights were going to be higher than the crane. Just to give everybody in town a perspective, and not just the neighbors on Olcott Avenue, because it will affect a view shed from many places. I had a lot of things to say, and Dr. Brutschel talked about a lot of them, so if you'll just bear with me. I want to scan through here. Oh, the last thing I want to say is, I feel like we're going from something that has been a great compromise, and it's worked for the school to
I'm just going to interrupt for 1 minute because you're at the 3-minute mark. I just need to check if anybody else wants to make a comment. You have, yes, at this.
I'll be really quick.
Okay.
Okay, so, we had a good compromise where the school got what they needed: lights at night, lights for night football games, lights when daylight savings was an issue in the fall. In the springtime, it wasn't an issue, it was daylight savings. Nobody needed night lights on the field. And the neighborhood, we weren't happy with any lights at all, but it was a great compromise for us because we didn't get 80-foot light poles and, year-round light imposed upon a neighborhood, and the visual of the light poles. Regardless of whether there's light or not, there's going to be an eyesore. I don't think anyone could look at them and say, I want that in my front yard or my backyard. So my thought is, don't just consider 80-foot light poles, LED light poles, as the only alternative. Has there been any safety-related issues, injuries by guests or athletes on this field? You need to consider that. There's always like a thought that we need more light and it'll provide better safety. How much do we really not have safety out there? Is there a way to get more safety by putting in another stanchion of the removable lights in a certain area where it may be too dark? Maybe we don't need to go from this little compromise to this huge extreme, and a little bit more for a couple of months is going to keep everybody a lot happier and not have the potential to ruin a beautiful neighborhood. And that neighborhood is not only for us, it's the neighborhood for your students 40 to 50 hours a week. It's the neighborhood for the families of those students. Everybody is proud to say Bernard's High School is in the neighborhood that it's in. Everybody loves that neighborhood. It's very well kept. People maintain their homes. People care about the neighborhood. And the school, it sounds like you want to care too. So consider alternatives. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Good evening to the members of the board. Paul St. Ange from Walcott Avenue. I want to thank Dr. Broschel for his presentation and for the focus group process into the board. Thank you very much for having facilitated such a process. One thing that was noted during the focus group was that there probably should be a comprehensive look at the facility in general. If you walk around this building during the evening, you will note that there are over 35 lights on the buildings. I would suggest in the facility tour, and that's a great idea, to go to other facilities. If you drive up one day to Mendham and notice how Mendham High School has a very sensitive approach to the lighting on their buildings. I think it's something that needs to be taken into account as this focus group and the board looks at our overall facilities and usage. I would suggest that there really is no need for 38 lights or more on this facility. It's a pretty quiet neighborhood. We love having the school here. I went to this school many, many years ago, as did many members of my family. It's a mainstay fabric of this area. But it should be kept in a way that is aesthetically pleasing. And very frankly, right now, you have spotlights all over the place that really aren't necessary. And with technology today, you have the ability to do, light-sensitive sensors that come on and off. it just seems overlit now. And I'm not going to address any of the field issues. I just think the process is much better than it was a decade ago. So I thank the board for that, Dr. Brochel, and I look forward to continuing the discussion in the coming months. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Is there anyone else who would like to make a comment at this time? Okay, can I get a motion to close public comment, please? Ms. Fry, in a second. Ms. Santoro? Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to move on to the approval of the minutes. I need a motion to approve the minutes. Ms. Cooper and Mr. Baker, a second. And is there any discussion? No? Okay, well then we'll need roll call. Mrs. DeMarco.
Mrs. DeBronco?
Yes.
Ms. Gills?
Yes.
Mr. Joyce?
Yes.
Ms. Nathans?
Yes.
Mrs. Santoro? Yes. Mrs. Rye?
Yes.
Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Ms. Ballard?
Abstain from the December meeting? Yes, to January.
Ms. Cooper? Yes. And Mrs. Brennan?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Marco. And we are now going to move into the report for the Finance Committee. Mr. Baker.
The Finance Committee met on January the 10th for about an hour and 10 minutes. We talked about 3 main items. The one item was Dr. Brochel's interim report. I'm not going to talk about that since we've got that in, and I'll leave that up to the F&O committee if they need to add anything to that. The main thing we talked about next was the budget for the coming year. We all got our books, and there's a great amount of information in these books, and I really appreciate the administrative staff for giving all this information to start the review of the budget. And the first draft of the budget is they've thrown everything in that they would like to have, and as you know, that's not going to be the end result. But the first draft includes a lot of things, and so we've got a spread of about $2 million we have to close, which is not unusual for the first draft. But we have that's because of a shortfall of $1 million in revenue and an increase in expenses of around $1 million. So that makes it a net of $2 million. But the one big thing on the revenues is Bedminster is sending a lot less students to us next year, about 17 less students, and we charge them around $20,000 a student. It's like 19 and change, so that's a big drop in the revenue. The other big drop is we're not taking as much out of capital as we did last year. And as far as expenses go, as you can imagine, most of the expenses increase is for staffing, what our wish list is on staffing. So between now and March, the Finance Committee and the administrative team is going to work to narrow the gap down so it is 0 by March. That's the objective. So the rest of the board members will get budget books during the month of February, correct? Okay, February or March. And we talked about the budget calendar, which we're going to approve as item number 9 on the agenda this evening. And the main mileposts there are, in our March meeting, we're going to present a draft of the budget to the board and to the public. And then at our April 24th meeting, we'll have a formal public hearing where members of the public can talk about the budget, give their comments, and then, if possible, we would approve the budget that night. I also want to note on the finance agenda, I want to thank St. John on the mountain for their contribution, for contributing $1,500 for our nursing program, which is wonderful. So you'll see that is split between all three schools, so that's a wonderful thing. So that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. At this time, I'd like to ask for a motion to approve action items number 1 through 11 on the agenda.
I'll move.
Mr. Baker, and a second, Ms. Nathans. Is there any discussion? Okay. Roll call, please, Mr. Marco.
Ms. Gillis? Mr. Joyce?
Yes.
Ms. Stevens?
Yes.
Mrs. Santoro? Yes. Mrs. Fry?
Yes.
Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Ms. Fowler?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper? Yes. Mrs. DeRocco?
Yes.
And Mrs. Rendell?
Yes. Okay, thank you very much. And now we will move on to the report of facilities and operations. Mrs. Santoro.
F&O met on January 10th, and all committee members were there. Once again, Dr. Rochelle has touched on a lot of what we discussed in committee during his superintendent report, but I will just go through everything and elaborate on some of the things we haven't already discussed. The first thing we talked about are the police lockers that the Bernardsville Police Department will be receiving a donation of money, and they would like to purchase police lockers to put at our school facilities for our on-site SLEOs. And there will be one in each building. They will contain items that will support our SLEOs in a response if needed. There will be no firearms stored in the locker. And the committee was in support of when we receive this donation, we will be voting on it on the agenda in an upcoming meeting. Then Dr. Rochelle talked about the budget for 2025 from an F&O perspective. Again, Bob kind of already spoke about, at first we talk about everything we like, and then as we go through the budget, we'll start to figure out what's feasible next year, and then what has to be longer term. The things that we talked about is adding a third SLEO and a district security specialist. Then we had a conversation about the appreciation for our relationship with the Bernardsville Police Department as well as our surrounding towns. The school district and the board is very appreciative of all that they do for the school and the excellent security that they provide at each of our buildings for our staff and students. Next year in the budget, we know we will be repairing and replacing the track, and there is possible repairs for the baseball and softball fields. That's going to be determined in the study that we're going to be undertaking in the spring. And then another area is tennis court. The tennis courts we may be doing work on, but we share that use with the town, so we will have discussions with the town and determine where that will go. Dr. Rochelle gave the community tonight the update on the memorandum of agreement with our police department, and as he stated, this is developed by the Attorney General and updated every couple of years. So he reviewed that with the committee and then shared some of those details this evening. We discussed the Alcott lights and went over the reports and talked about the feedback that we received from the focus group. And I would just, Dr. Rochelle did an excellent job of reporting out to everybody on that. I would just iterate that the F&O committee, fully supports the process that we are undergoing, soliciting all the feedback from the community and really partnering with the community on this endeavor. And I just want to reiterate that, we certainly want to lead by example, as we're always teaching our students to be good community members, and that is the intent. as we go forward with this, and why we want to keep hearing from the neighbors. So we also certainly appreciate the feedback that was given to us at the podium this evening. And that would conclude my committee report.
Thank you, Mrs. Santoro. At this time, I'd like to ask for a motion to approve action items number 1 through 4 on the agenda. Okay, and a second, Ms. Rye. Thank you, and any discussion?
I guess a question, comment. I think it's great learning about the police locker and that the police department benefit from nonprofits that obviously drive their funds from, the local residents. Are we able to disclose who that foundation is, just in case people want to help support that foundation?
I don't know the exact name of it, that's funding the police department, but I believe it's I don't know the exact name, I don't want to speak.
Maybe later.
Yeah,
just thinking that people might want to support it.
Yeah, it is a local foundation, Burnsville case.
That's great. It's like a home away from home for the Steelers, right? So that people don't
Just to be clear, the board wouldn't be accepting the donation that's being made for the money, but they would be accepting the donation of the lockers. So just slight differentiation. But I'll get you the foundation.
Thank you. Is there anybody else for discussion?
Difficult to hear when the speakers are speaking. Sorry.
Is there any additional discussion? No? Okay, then roll call, please, Mr. Marco.
Mr. Joyce?
Yes.
Ms. Havens?
Yes.
Mrs. Santorno?
Yes.
Mrs. Fry?
Yes.
Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Ms. Ballard?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper? Yes. Mrs. T. Rumford?
Yes.
Ms. Gill?
Yes.
And Mrs. Frenda?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. And we are now going to move on to the report of the Curriculum Committee. Ms. Cooper, please.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me? Yeah, okay. The Curriculum Committee met Wednesday, January 10th for 2.5 hours. All committee members attended, as did Dr. Brochel, Dr. Butler, and Ms. Karansky. We began the meeting by welcoming our new members, Mrs. Gills and Mrs. Rye, to our committee. And Ms. Karansky then joined us for a discussion about special ed services in the district. She returned to curriculum to answer the questions we asked in our December meeting after her presentation in our committee meeting in November. She discussed the district's expansion of inclusion in special ed and reported that she was recommending a new self-contained LLD class, which stands for Language, Learning, and Disability, at Bedwell for kids in kindergarten through 2nd grade. To staff this program, we'll need a new special ed teacher. It's anticipated that this program will include about 5 to 6 kids, but it could contain up to 16 kids with the support of multiple paraprofessionals. Generally, Ms. Karansky reported that Somerset Hills is experiencing the same trends in special ed as those reported by other districts, including increased referrals from the preschool program due to behavioral challenges and more frequent and more severe psychiatric concerns throughout the district. Consequently, she indicated that Somerset Hills, like most districts, had an increased need for school-based counseling and potentially a need for more counselors. We also discussed our out-of-district placements, the use of testing and other data to guide planning, and the observation that clinical recommendations for special services don't always easily translate into the classroom. She reported that she is in contact with other districts regarding best practices. Dr. Brochel then emphasized the complexity of code compliance in special ed and the role and the impact of accurate data, including special ed data in determining state aid. October 15th is the due date for providing certified enrollment data for all students, which determines state aid the following year. We then transitioned into a discussion about the number of reported harassment, intimidation, and bullying, or HIB, episodes last year. Dr. Butler presented data demonstrating a clear spike in both founded and unfounded HIB cases in grade 7, which had 16 reported incidents, and in grade 8, which had 14 reported incidents, compared to a rate of 8 or fewer episodes per grade in all other grades. Grades K through 2 and 11 and 12 have fewer than 3 incidents in each grade. Given the relatively large number of incidents at the middle school, the administration is recommending that several teachers and administrators from BMS attend a 2-day program run by the Capturing Kids' Hearts organization. We'll be voting on these PD requests tonight. In this immersive program, teachers and administrators will learn and practice skills they will use and model in their classrooms and school. These include strategies and techniques for building meaningful and productive relationships with students and colleagues, creating a safe and effective environment for learning, dealing with conflict, negative behavior, and issues with disrespect, and developing self-managing, high-performing classrooms using team-building skills. According to the organization, districts that use a systemic approach to instituting the research-based practices advocated by Capturing Kids' Hearts have reported improvements in several key indicators of school performance. For example, districts have reported strengthened student connectedness by enhancing healthy bonds with teachers, reduced disciplinary escalations and referrals, reduced truancy and dropouts, decreased negative behaviors, increased academic performance and test scores, a higher rate of job satisfaction among teachers, and increased teacher retention and improvement in teacher recruiting. Participation in this program is free to the district, although we will be reimbursing teachers and administrators for travel-related expenses. There was limited discussion on all other professional development and field trip requests. All were approved. We then moved on to the informational items, including the high-impact tutoring grant the district received and the calendars for the next 2 years. At the time of our meeting for the high-impact tutoring grant, we were in the middle of the RFP process, but tonight we're actually voting on a vendor, Imaging Learning today, right? Next, Dr. Butler and Dr. Brochel presented drafts of the district calendars for the next 2 academic years. The committee engaged in a lengthy discussion regarding the drafts of the calendars and the change in the process for the board to approve them. Dr. Brochel emphasized that there is no perfect calendar. The committee revisited priorities that have been discussed in previous years, including an earlier start date. The committee has requested data on the benefits and disadvantages of starting earlier in the year and agreed that an earlier start date would not be feasible this year given the language in the state contract. We also discussed moving spring break early in the year, both to break up the relatively vacation-free period between January 2nd and mid-April, and to separate spring break from Easter. Dr. Brochel indicated that he preferred to have the longest period of uninterrupted instructional days in the winter and a shorter period in the spring, so he recommended keeping spring break in April. Bedminster also prefers that spring break falls the week before Easter. We also discussed the possibility of decreasing the number of reserved snow days from 3 to 2 to extend the President's Day holiday from 3 days to 4 days. This next drafts of the calendars will be available at our next committee meeting. Dr. Butler then informed us that teachers from Tewksbury Elementary School were visiting on January 18th. They were visiting to observe the approaches of our teachers at Bedwell to teaching literacy. The administrators also informed us that a curriculum night was held for 8th graders and their families on January 10th to introduce them to high school and its curriculum, and it went well. And that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Cooper. I would now like to ask for a motion to approve action items number 1 through 4 on the agenda. I'll make the motion. Okay, and a second, please. Mrs. Nathan, and discussion. Nope. Okay.
Mrs. Nathan?
Yes.
Mrs. Santoro?
Yes.
Mrs. Frye?
Yeah.
Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Ms. Bauer?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper?
Yes.
Mrs. DeGraffenreid?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Joyce?
Yes.
And Mrs. Frank?
Yes. Okay, thank you. Now moving on to the report of the Personnel Committee, Mr. Grandpré.
Policy and Personnel met on January 11th from 4 to 5. Ms. Nathan, Ms. Frenda, Ms. Gills, Dr. Brochel, and myself were in attendance. In regards to personnel, similar to the other committees, we discussed our hopes for the fiscal year 25 budget in regards to both instructional and co-curricular support and other support needs the district would have. And we reviewed our tentative agenda. I believe that is it in regards to personnel.
Okay, thank you. I would like to ask for a motion to approve action items number 1 through 8 on the agenda.
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Grandpré in a second. Ms. Frye, any discussion? Nope. Okay.
Mrs. Santoro?
Yes.
Mrs. Frye?
Yeah.
Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Ms. Bauer?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper? Yes. Mrs. DeGraffenreid?
Yes.
Ms. Gills?
Yes.
Mr. Joyce?
Yes.
Ms. Nathan?
Yes.
And Mrs. Frank?
Yes.
Motion
Okay, and now for the report of policy, Mr. Grandpré.
Okay, the same meeting in regards to policy. We started our meeting with our second reading of the Booster Club policy and the student fundraising policies. We had received no feedback from the public after the first reading, but the committee did reiterate that once this was approved, there was a hope that the athletics, the administration, coaching, and parent education would be available on the policies and the changes, and that our reasoning, which has been explained in many meetings, would also be reiterated to the public. There was a request during the meeting that we also include the HSAs in that education plan, as they do deal in fundraising and advertising, as well as the intricacies that are involved with substances and alcohol now within these policies. We were assured that a comprehensive educational plan would be decided once we decided on those policies and regulations this evening. We also had a brief presentation on the Olcott lights, which I will not belabor here, but we will definitely take it to heart that it is our role as the policy committee to ensure that we are keeping the community in mind if we are to move forward with this, and ensuring that we do write into policy what any restrictions would be with the lights in terms of timing and everything else. So that would again be another opportunity to have that policy approved and brought to the public for our facility use policy if that were to be updated. We also did have a discussion around the communication survey, which again we've had an extensive presentation on this evening, so I won't continue to belabor that. So that is it.
Thank you. So then at this time, I would like to ask for a motion to approve action item number 1 on the agenda. Mr. Grandpré, and a second? Mr. Joyce? Any discussion? I would just like to, at this time, thank the policy committee. I would like to thank Dr. Broschel and Mr. Weiss for their help and guidance in the modifications that we've made to these policies, and that the intent and hopefully the way that it comes out is to make this a much more beneficial policy and regulations and give a lot more clarity to this process. So I just really want to extend a note of gratitude, because there was a lot of discussion, it was significant work, and we're very appreciative of that.
Great job.
Yeah. Anybody else? Nope. Okay, then roll call.
Mrs. Wright?
Yes.
Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Ms. Fowler?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper? Yes. Mrs. C. Grumford?
Yes.
Ms. Gills?
Yes.
Mr. Joyce?
Yes.
Ms. Nathan?
Yes.
Mrs. Sinclair? Yes. And Mrs. Strickland?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. So then at this time, we will move into our second public comment sections. I'm just going to reiterate that public comments are welcome at this time now on any topic. Please state your name and address. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Mrs. DeMarco will set her timer when the speaker begins, and at the 3-minute mark, I will interrupt so that any other members of the public who wish to have an opportunity to speak have a chance to do so. You may return to the podium to complete your statement or offer additional words after everyone else has had an opportunity to speak, for a total of 2 times at the podium. Please understand that our public forums are not structured as question and answer sessions, but are offered as opportunities to share your thoughts with the board. In instances where the board feels there is a misunderstanding or inaccuracy, the board president or superintendent may address the comment. In accordance with New Jersey statute, the board will not discuss matters regarding specific personnel. A reminder that all comments please remain respectful, and that audience members show respect for the speaker. And at this time, we will open public comments on any topic. Thank you.
I would like to make some comments, please.
As a member of the public?
Yes.
Then you need to.
I was advised I didn't have to, but if you want me to, I will. Whatever makes you comfortable.
If it's a public comment, it should be made from the podium,
Okay.
not from the table.
want to acknowledge Dr. Brochel for always opening these meetings with good, happy, joyful news, even when you know that some board business may be difficult. So I'm always appreciative of how you do open these meetings. My remarks this evening are not made in my capacity as a member of this body. This speech may run longer than my 2 3-minute speaking opportunities in public commentary. Given my position as a board member, I respectfully request the consolidation of my 2 allotted 3-minute segments to present my statement fully. Should parliamentary protocol be a concern, a fellow audience member might graciously offer their time to me. I preface these remarks with caution from board counsel to remind listeners that the views are mine and do not represent the positions of the board or me as a member. Holly Clark Emery, a former board member, was a candidate in the recent board election. The election was so close that only 4 votes separated the first and third finishers. An independent group released an ad criticizing Sam for not addressing a resident's divisive remarks at the October board meeting, which referred to Holly's campaign sign as a dog whistle to all right-thinking voters, whom the speaker pleaded to please leave the district. When public comments are so hostile and pointed, a rebuke from leadership is not unprecedented. In June 2022, the board members stopped the meeting, cleared the stage, and tried to preclude a speaker from concluding his remarks on pronoun use. In tears, Vice President Frenda scolded the speaker that his comments did not represent the district. The Frendas wrongfully blamed Holly for the ad, which clearly identifies its sponsor. In real time, Holly shared with me text messages she received from Michael's phone on November 1st and 2nd. The first text reads, quote, "Mike Frenda here. Cut it out with the smear ads. It's volunteer Board of Ed, not the battle for America's soul," end quote. Later, following a call between Sam and Holly about the first text, Holly received another text from Mike's phone. Quote, "Sam said you reached out to her. If what you said is true and you've got nothing to do with what's going on, then I expect a public apology and a condemnation of these tactics. Anything less than that means nothing," end quote. Reasonably, one would expect Sam to apologize to Holly for the first inappropriate text from her husband, with assurances no more texts were to come. But that did not happen. Because of the troubling texts,
I am going to interrupt at this time as it is a public comment, and I am going to ask if anyone else.
I'll yield my time.
There are other people in the audience. Is there anyone else who intends to speak this evening? Okay, then I'm going to need to ask you to pause so that other members can take the podium. Thank you.
The person that the board didn't condemn, I had an interaction with her at the end of that meeting that night, and I thanked her because she was also attacking my political ads, and she specifically brought it up. And she told me to F off, and I was pathetic. And the board did nothing about that. In fact, Dr. Butler even commended her how much her volunteer work really helps out in the community. And I've seen this woman come out here time and again, always sitting there ripping into people that don't agree with her position. I don't rip into hers. I just sit here and come here and state my opinion on what I think the board should be doing a little bit different. Yet the board, and particularly the president and the vice president, who are friends with this person, never condemn her. Leaves me to wonder what your judgment's like. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Would anyone else like to take the podium?
I don't want to take the podium. I just, this man did not introduce himself.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Out of curiosity.
It's Bob Weibel, Gladstone, New Jersey.
Yep. Okay.
Hi, Pete Kellogg, 36 Olcott. I want to thank Doctor for what you've done so far as the lights. Certainly a different procedure than we've been through in the past. Question on what exactly is this feasibility study that's going to be done? What does it involve?
Sure. So I'm delivering information to the board regarding how feasible it is to balance the concept of being good neighbors and installing LED lights.
I'm talking about you're hiring someone or going out to, what's that?
So we have,
what's involved there?
The board annually appoints professional services, architects, engineers, a host of services. We typically do that in May. And one of the services that we do contract with is an engineer and is an architect, and being able to engage with them to better understand costing, to better understand how wide light is spread and kind of and moves out in a certain area is important contextual information to know for the focus group. So we want to gain a better understanding of what the experience is like on the field, what the experience is like in the stands, what the experience is like behind the stands, what the experience is like end zones, behind the end zones. So that's what we would be looking to provide context for future focus groups to understand.
Is there a cost-benefit analysis done with that? I know when I was at the meeting, unfortunately I couldn't be there in December. I was there over the summer. Okay. And a number was thrown out about $1.3 million was kind of the prior cost for someone who did the lights a year or so ago. Is there a cost-benefit? Because this year we had 7 football games at home, 2 extra because the team did so well under inferior lights, as I'm led to believe. So, it's good to see that they did so well with the current lights that are there. Other than that, it's the band, and I can recall 1 or 2 other games that ran long where the lights were turned on. That's maybe 20 nights. And when we went through this before, the argument was they're not going to be on that often because we don't need them that often. We don't need them in the spring. So is there going to be a real cost benefit to, $1.5 million over 20 nights and 365 days a year that we look at these things as a community? So is that going to be done?
Certainly, we can include that when we kind of present out on the economic side. Certainly. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your comment. Is there anyone else who would like to make a comment at this time?
Paul St. Ange, Olcott Avenue. I would just like to follow up on the point made by the policy committee presentation. It was presented as if there was a discussion regarding lights on Olcott Field during the policy committee, and I would respectfully ask the board to consider deferring any discussion within the policy committee until the process with the focus group is allowed to proceed, a feasibility study adopted, et cetera, before internal committee discussions about lighting on the field are being undertaken while this other process is underway. Thank you very much.
I appreciate that. I just want to clarify my discussion with the policy committee really was around if we move in the direction, there needs to be an understanding from the committee how the neighborhood feels about the lights, and there would need to be information codified in policy to be clear. So I just wanted to really give them the courtesy of a heads up that if anything were to happen, it the policy committee would be the one to really examine it. But there's strong agreement for me on your point that you can't work at the same time on, on the same thing. So I appreciate that, but thank you.
Anyone else that would like to make a public comment at this time?
I'd like to hear what she has to say, the rest of her speech.
Is there anyone else that needs to make a comment at this time who hasn't already spoken?
So I want to speak, but I'd like to hear the rest of her speech first. Can we do that?
As long as there's no one else in the audience that would like to speak. Okay.
So I left off after the second text from Mike Frenda to Holly, where he asked for an apology and a condemnation. Reasonably, and I said, I'm sorry, I'm repeating this, because of the troubling texts, I accompanied Holly on the evening of November 1st while she canvassed. Like Holly, I'm a minority woman and had a similar experience with Michael as a candidate last year. He posted more than 24 times to my campaign Facebook page and issued the same stern warnings about my candidacy in person when I was canvassing, and he happened upon me. The next day, the situation escalated with more threatening messages from Mike's phone to Holly. Quote, all I asked for was a simple apology, and I would have dropped it, but you couldn't do me that courtesy to help right a wrong that you were part of. Okay, fine, we'll do this your way, end quote. Holly then received the most foreboding text of all from Mike's phone. Quote, I'm coming. The internet is forever. Twitching and deleting everything won't help. Websites, robotexts, a commercial, a bank account to pay for all of this, etc. I've been in touch with a cyber investigator, digital forensics investigator, private investigator, etc. I like to throw money at a problem to see if I can make it go away. Once I have the receipts, I may give people a chance to grovel for forgiveness. Short of that, I'm taking souls. Might want to go ahead and reach out to your lawyer and your realtor. This nation has a shameful record of not protecting minority rights, rife with incidents of families being driven out of their communities by intimidation or forced by angry white privileged neighbors. While this might not be a battle for America's soul, it is a proper campaign for a reasonable government role, not a popularity contest. The incumbent's record is fair game. In several ads and videos, one of my rival candidates mocked my campaign slogan and positions. We didn't threaten their home and well-being. By November 2nd, fearing for her family, Holly reported the text to the police. I was on the phone with her en route to the police station, where she ignored Sam's repeated calls and texts. The next day, Holly succumbed to the pressure and apologized to Sam in writing. Why this relentless pursuit for Holly to apologize and condemn an ad she had nothing to do with? Sam posted the apology to her campaign's social media, perhaps hoping to discredit the ad in a competitive campaign. Then, knowing as they did, their behavior had scared Holly to the point of reporting these threats to the police the day before. The Frendas mocked the situation in the post's comments. In the dash cam footage, Holly says, quote, I don't feel safe when someone mentions that I must pack up and leave. My first gut response as I was picking up the kids and getting this text was, okay, now it's another level.
Okay, Ms.
Making
Gills,
sure,
Ms.
God
Gills,
forbid.
You have a lot. I'm sorry. I have read twice the rules on public comments. It is a total of 6 minutes at the podium. 2 opportunities to speak.
I'll read it.
Great. Thank you so much.
I'm sorry. I had asked, excuse me, I'm going to interrupt. I had asked for if he would like to read it. That's absolutely fine. But I asked for, excuse me, I asked if anyone else had any further comment. You said that you did, but you wanted her to finish. So I'm more than happy.
She's clearly not done. There's more to say. So let this gentleman speak, and then I'll go. We want to hear what the rest of the story has to tell.
Excuse me, sir. Can you just exercise some decorum and control yourself?
Decorum.
Thank you.
I asked numerous times if anyone else was going to make a public comment. Nobody said that they were. You indicated that you were. If you would like to complete the statement, then that is...
From someone else. I have other things that I'd like to say.
Okay, well, then you may take the podium.
Now it's your chance.
You may take the podium.
It makes sense to go back and forth.
Yeah, let this gentleman...
Excuse me. I have read twice the rules for public comments. I have been extraordinarily clear in both statements. There aren't exceptions. I have been very clear. I read it at the actionable agenda items. I read it now. So I am more than happy to hear what anybody else has to say.
He can read the rest of it. I have some others.
Okay.
Decorum, good community members. What just was released to the public does not sound like good community members or decorum. Sounds pretty, in light of these recent threats. Excuse me. No. My name is Mr. D from Bedminster, and in light of these threats that are made by the president of the school board's husbands, quite frankly, I'd like to remain anonymous and not be at the, end of the threats from Mike Frenda. But my question is for you, Dr. Brochel. The video that came out from this community member who called for the removal of all religious people in the school, do you agree with that?
This isn't a back and forth, and
you seem to have a lot of back and forth about the lights at the football field. I'd love to hear your thoughts, because you remained silent when a community member came up here and said all religious people should be removed from this district. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. I know you have a lot of opinions on lights, but how do you feel about the removal of religious people from the school?
Is there anything else you'd like to say, sir?
I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the superintendent.
I'm talking to you, sir, and this is the board's meeting.
Dr. Brochel, you remain silent. Your silence is an indication that you do agree with the removal of religious people from this district. Your opportunity to clear the air, Dr. Brochel.
Say as much as you'd like, sir. Nobody's going to respond. Keep going.
Let the record show the superintendent of the Somerset Hills School District remains silent on the removal of religious students from this school. The record shows you're funded by tax dollars and you are supporting through your silence the removal of religious people from this school. Now let's get back to the shocking revelation that the president of this school board's husband made a threat against her candidate opposition in the recent school board, coming for souls. That is enraging that the school board president's husband would make such outlandish threats against someone who had clearly nothing to do with a video of that same community member who called for the removal of religious people from the school. Your husband made a threat about that. That's shocking. How can we trust you to adjudicate matters like HIB situations where minorities might be discriminated? Our marginalized students, how can we trust you when your husband is threatening candidates for no reason? It's shocking. I call on this board to ask Ms. Frenda to step down, not only from her role as the president, from the school board in general. How can we trust you to take what is the most important matters of our students' education when this is the behavior, which clearly is not, in the values of a good community member or any type of decorum whatsoever? I call on this board to act tonight to remove such erratic, violent behavior. As a victim of verbal violence myself, I know fully what Holly must be feeling right now, and it is not good. It's certainly not safe. And again, I call on all you board members, and I call on you, Dr. Brochel. Again, your silence is incriminating. I believe you make over $225,000 a year, and you will refuse to denounce the removal of religious students. I hope the Burnersville News is reporting this, that Dr. Brochel refuses to denounce the removal of religious students from this school. Let the record show any religious people in this community, this is what your tax dollars are funding. Remember, your silence is incriminating, and by default, you agree with her. I hope that was enough decorum for you.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Is there anybody else who would like to speak at this time?
I would be willing to conclude Ms. Gill's remarks.
Fine.
Let me just show you where.
Sir, can we get your name and address, please?
Start here with the quote from Holly.
My name is Craig Cadigiano. I'm concluding Board Member Gill's comment in her capacity as a private citizen since she ran long. In dash cam footage, Holly says, "I don't feel safe when when someone mentions that I must pack up and leave, my first gut response was picking up my kids and getting his text was okay, now it's another level. Making sure, God forbid, if something happens or goes wonky, there is a report somewhere I was on my way over here and Sam was calling me. I was like, I'm not dealing with this anymore. Within this information, Ms. Gills called for a meeting with Sam and board attorney, inviting Superintendent Brochel. She then emailed, fax, the text messages, the police report, the dash cam video, and her correspondence with board counsel to the board members, excluding Sam, on December 12th and January 3rd. Hours after receiving the dash cam video from Ms. Gills, this body re-elected Sam as president. This board might not run the school board election, which was so tight any number of factors would have affected the outcome, nor do they prosecute crimes, but they are responsible to the community to ensure the conduct of the board members is ethically compliant. Board members and school officials are bound by Section 18A:12-22 of the New Jersey Code of Ethics, which states these board members and administrators must avoid conduct which violates the public trust or creates a justifiable impression among the public that such trust is being violated. Whether Sam committed an ethical breach or these text messages violate criminal statutes against protected class members are determinations for other jurisdictions. Sam will have her defenses and perhaps provide a reasonable and justifiable explanation for all of this. If so, Ms. Gills has not heard it yet. But by not coming forward with this information, she believes she would be guilty of violating the public trust, her oath, and the promises you've all made to us to be transparent. Part of this position of trust referenced by the code is vested in the board's ability to review HIB bullying claims. In her correspondence to the board, Ms. Gills asked about the future credibility of this body to pass judgment on the children of others when we, as adults, cannot comport ourselves to the same standard of behavior. Retell this story about texting and the use of social media to yourselves, but instead of Sam and Mike, insert Sandra and Matt, white privileged BHS students who are dating. Instead of Holly, the target of abuse is Haley, a minority student at BHS. Ms. Gills spent the better part of the last 3 months in surgery, in hospital, and recovery.
Okay, your 3 minutes are up. I have to interrupt and ask if anybody else would like to make a statement. No, you have.
I'd like to hear the rest of that. This is a shocker.
Ms. Gills spent the better part of the last 3 months in surgery and hospital.
Just cut it out.
Can I just make a comment that obviously there's a conflict of interest here. I don't know the situation. There's a conflict of interest between something that transpired and the school board president. That school board president shouldn't be making decisions now about allowing someone to speak.
Correct.
Ma'am, it's not a legal conflict of interest. Ms. Frenda is running the board meeting as the president. Ms. Frenda is affording every member of the public that wishes to speak the opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Ms. Gills spent the better part of the last 3 months in surgery, in hospital, in recovery, and feeling sordid and ashamed for being part of a board that chose to circle the wagons and keep quiet rather than publicly condemn this intimidating and unethical behavior. But then you all went even further. You condoned and rewarded the behavior by re-electing Sam as board president. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to make a comment at this time?
I want to make a comment as a board member.
Bob Weibel.
That can take place in supplementary
Gladstone, New
matters.
Jersey. So we like to talk about policy here, and I've talked about your policies before, so I would reference the board, look at policy 169.02, board member use of social networks. I'm not going to read the entire thing, but I'm going to read probably the more relevant sections. Board of Education members must avoid conduct which is in violation of the public trust or which creates a justifiable impression among the public that such trust is being violated. Board members should be advised communications, publications, photographs, and any other information posted by the board member or reposted by the board member on a social network could violate the school ethics and be cause for sanctions in accordance with the law. While this policy respects the right of board members to use social networks, board members shall recognize they are held to a higher standard than the general public with regard to standards of conduct and ethics. A board member's use of social networks shall not damage the reputation of the school's districts, employees, students, or their families, such as Holly's. Board members who use social networks shall ensure their conduct is appropriate for a Board of Education member. Board members should exercise care in setting appropriate boundaries between their personal and public online behavior. Understanding what is private in the digital world often has a possibility of becoming public even without their knowledge or consent. In this case, the board president knew about this because she posted Holly's letter and signature. Now, I go to policy 142, specifically section 5. In accordance with the NJSA 18A-12, every board member will abide by the following code of ethics. And I'm just going to go to number 5 specifically because that's where I think that this is really relevant. There might be an ethical violation. Recognize that the authority rests with the Board of Education and makes no personal promises or take any private action that may compromise the board. I would submit that the private action that occurred was the board president coercing Holly into writing a letter admonishing some type of ad or whatever it was that went around on the internet that she had nothing to do with. And she compromised her ability and judgment to keep her personal life out of her, and she was a sitting board president, by the way, up for re-election, while Holly, as a former board member, was also seeking election. And she partook it on herself after the text messages, after the police report was filed, to ask Holly to go in there and apologize and say you had nothing to do with it. Why did that matter? I mean, why did it matter? Was there anything factually incorrect in that? So I think the board president actually used her position and coerced Holly, which should have been a matter between her husband and Holly, and that was it, because the board members are held to a higher ethical standard. And for that reason, I would parrot what Nick said. I would ask her to resign tonight, and the board members should immediately ask for that resignation. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
I'm Barbara Long from Lloyd Road, and I don't know if you all saw my letter to the editor in the Bernardsville News about hate speech. There is so much hate out there. I had no idea, however, there was this kind of hate in our school board elections. I've lived here for 50-plus years, and this is disgusting. I am mortified, I am horrified that you all could do this.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to make a comment at this time?
Can we speak again? Why am I asking you? You should be able to speak, right? Would you like to speak, sir?
You have 3 minutes.
Dr. Brochel, you want to clear the air? You got the opportunity. I know how you feel about lights. How do you feel about the removal of religious people from the school?
Sir, it's not a question.
I'm not talking to you. I don't care. What's your hourly rate? How much are we paying you?
Don't worry about it.
It's way too much.
Waste your time. Go ahead.
Okay.
Keep going.
Again, let's talk about this. So we've got a school board president's husband making threats against candidates. All the while, the ranking of this school continues to slip and slip away while the tax dollars go up. The school is not performing well. Maybe it's because we're focusing on nonsense nonsense. Maybe because the school board president's husband is making threats. How does that make you feel, Ms. Nathans? Do you have anything to say about it? No. Do you think religious people should be removed from school? No. What about you, Bob? No board members required. Don't say anything if you want religious people to be removed from school. Let the record show Bob Baker wants religious people removed from school. What about you, Ms. Ballard? Do you have anything to say about religious people being removed from school? Any thoughts? No. Your silence is deafening. Ms. Ballard, on the record, not condemning the removal of religious people from school. What about you, Ms. Cooper? How do you feel about removing religious people from school? Your silence is incriminating and it's deafening. If you don't have the confidence and the self-will to say that you stand against religious persecution, I don't feel you should be on the school board. Dr. Butler, how do you feel about the removal of religious people from school? No. I know you make a nice salary, but yet you won't condone religious persecution. Let the record show another state-funded, taxpayer-funded individual refuses to condone the removal of religious people from school. We know how Dr. Brochel feels. He's all about it. Ms. Frenda, how do you feel about the removal of religious people from school? Race, color, creed. Do you feel it's right to remove people based on their religious views? Again, what is your last name, attorney guy?
My name is Adam White.
Adam White. Well, what's your hourly rate? What are we paying you?
Any other questions?
I'll find it out, but again, it's way too much, and I call on the board to remove him as well. Ms. DeMarco, how do you feel about removing religious people from this school? If you don't say anything, it makes me think you agree. Ms. Santora, how do you feel about the removal of religious people from school? You can't say anything? You don't feel that it's wrong to persecute people based on their religion? You don't have anything to say? What about you, Ms. Gills? How do you feel about the removal of religious people from school?
I mean, what am I supposed to say?
I'll move on. Mr. Joyce, do you have any thoughts on removing religious people from school? Do you think that's okay? Wow, here we go. We got an answer. Mr. Joyce doesn't feel it's right to remove religious people from school. I commend you, Mr. Joyce. I commend you. It's not that hard, people. Don't listen to Mr. Weiss. What are we paying him, $300 an hour? It's too much. All right, Mr. Gramprey, how do you feel about removing religious people from school? The public wants to know. Are you okay with removing religious people from school? You're not going to say anything. Wow. What about you, Ms. Wright? How do you feel about religious persecution? Do you think that's okay? Condemning people for their religious views? Do you think they should leave the district? Everybody wants to know. You're not going to say anything? Well, your silence tells me that you agree with it. So the record shows we've got a bunch of people that are really against religious folks.
Time is up. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Hi, John Donahue, Bernardsville. This is a lot to take in. Holly volunteered to run for the board. She served on the board. It's never easy to do. And I'm humiliated that this came out in our community. And it's divisive. And honestly, Ms. Frenda, the right thing to do is resign. That's the high road.
With an apology.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak at this time?
I have comments. I don't know if it's time to do this.
Hi, Mrs. D from PPAC. I just want to say I'm so glad my children are not here anymore. We've moved on to a religious school. It is amazing. It is fantastic. My children are thriving. There's not all these weird hip things coming out of nowhere, being targeted for our religion, which probably happened in the past, and for me speaking up here. So the teachers are great. I see one here my son had. There's nothing against the teachers at all, but I mean, this shadiness is going on. I mean, our school partners with the parent, and that's why it's successful. We didn't like the choices in the book fair. They changed the book fair. We didn't like a certain website, Epic, with a bunch of books on there that were inappropriate. They changed it, and it's just great. I mean, we're paying for it in addition to the taxes that keep going up, but I mean, no regrets. And anyone watching this, I think you should change.
Thank you for your comment. Is there anyone else who would like to speak at this time? No? Can I? Okay. And can I have a second? Mr. Gramprey, thank you. While some...
Are you going to resign?
Oh, can I get a roll call to close public comments?
Are you going to resign?
Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Ms. Ballard?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper? Yes. Mrs. DeMarco?
Yes.
Ms. Gills?
Yes.
Mr. Joyce?
Yes.
Ms. Nathans?
Yes.
Mrs. Santoro? Yes. Mrs. Raj?
Yes.
And Mrs. Brenda?
Yes. While there have been some factual comments made this evening, there have also been many egregious and inflammatory allegations that have just been made. None of them actually pertain to anything board-related or relevant to current, prior, or future business for the board's consideration. As such, I don't believe this is the proper venue or forum to address them. However, I have always operated openly, honestly, and transparently, and as this is a private matter, I am happy to discuss this and any other matters with any interested party. If you would like to reach out to me, my contact information is publicly available via the district website.
How can we be sure your husband will retaliate against us?
Thank you.
Sir, please. How can we be sure? We don't feel safe. Resign, resign.
Now we will be moving into supplementary matters. Is there anyone that has anything?
You've lost the public trust.
Nothing that was said today was factually incorrect. Nothing. It came from a police report and it came from your husband's phone. So nothing is factually incorrect. And I did approach this privately, and the wagons were circled. And as my husband was finishing my remarks, the attorney and the president weren't even listening. So I don't know how you can say what was said was factually incorrect. I mean, addressing the matter involving Sam this evening has been a profoundly challenging endeavor. There was no sense of pride or satisfaction in bringing these issues to light. Countless nights found me restless, contemplating the gravity of stepping forward, weighed heavily by concerns for potential repercussions on my husband, our home, and especially our 3 children, all students within the district. I steadfastly anchored my remarks in transparency, meticulously relying on documented evidence. The text messages that I referenced have been officially recorded in the police report, as has the dash cam footage, from which I quoted directly. The emails I've addressed to the board and mentioned tonight are probably accessible through a public information request. Guided by the advice of the board counsel, particularly since much of this information was disclosed to me personally, my resolve to speak out is driven by an unwavering commitment to our community and adherence to the ethical and moral standards expected of us as board members. Our responsibility extends beyond our conduct, both in public and online, to include vigilance against any ethical transgressions by fellow board members. It's with regret that I found it necessary to act on this responsibility tonight. By example, we must rise above the pervasive toxic culture that often characterizes digital communication and social media. Transparency and openness must define our board's ethos. We must disclose pertinent information as it becomes known, even when it casts a negative shadow on the board, its members, or the administration. This principle will guide my tenure on this board, and honestly, I felt bad for you. I really did, until I see your smug face while you're addressing whatever it is with Attorney Weiss. The smugness you have on your face, the circling of wagons around you to protect you. What you did was horrific. It was horrific. You posted, you became an involved party, and then you laughed at her. It's all on screenshots. It can be denied, but it's all on screenshots. It can be deleted, but it's all on screenshots.
The internet's forever.
Okay, thank you.
And I did feel badly for you until I saw that smugness in your face. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to make any comments on supplementary matters?
I'll just say something very quickly. Ms. Emery, you're here in the crowd, and I'm sorry for this for you. You have iron veins, and you're a sweetheart to work with. And I'm sorry, this is for you.
Is there anybody else? Okay, then can I get a motion to adjourn, please?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
And a second? All in favor?
Motion to resign.
Okay, thank you.